League of Legends, The Lord of the Thousand Year War. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226, The Original Devil. The woman's piercing voice vibrated my eardrums. I moved away from the device a little, and my heart rose and fell. There was no doubt that Maya had stopped her daughter, Aisha. Why not? Mom, it's obviously Dad who's back. Why don't you open the door? Be obedient. Mom will open the door. As if she had convinced her daughter, the woman's footsteps approached the door, and she made a trembling voice with suppressed fear. Who are you? After a few seconds of silence, a panicked man's voice came from outside the door. Maya, where are you? I can't find my way home. I want to go home so much. Can you come and find me? I'm lost. I've heard Edgar's voice. The voice at the door was indeed Edgar's, but how could this be possible? As Edgar had been missing for several days, how could he lose his key and go home for no reason? I wanted to climb up to the eaves of the door to see who was outside the door, but my frightened body instinctively refused to do so. While I was hesitating, the Demacia peasant woman spoke again. Where are your keys? My keys are lost. Lost. In the next minute, there was a dead silence inside and outside the house. I even noticed that there was a cold gaze on me. At this moment, I seemed to have fallen from an outsider to a chess piece. The strange situation made me doubt whether these three Demacians were playing tricks on me. The pride of being a member of the Nightblade made me abandon cowardice. Anger made me touch the magic steel bayonet at my waist. I forgot my fear and moved my body towards the eaves of the door and looked down. Then, I got a result that made my scalp numb. The fire in the window was reflected outside, but there was no one at the door. If it wasn't the magician, who was the man who spoke just now? I quickly returned to the device, becoming more and more confused. I put my ear against the amplifier, but I heard the sound of a little girl crying. After listening carefully for a long time, I didn't hear any movement other than crying, as if the Demacia peasant woman named Ma had disappeared. Woo 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 woo. While I was in a daze, Aisha's crying became colder and colder. The sound became more and more hollow as time passed, like a biting cold wind from Freljord. The crying coldly surrounded my body and wanted to get into the depths of my soul. I had an understanding in my heart that this was the sound of crying for the dead. I even had a feeling that the sad and miserable crying had come behind me unknowingly. After countless life and death crises, my survival instinct told me that I had to do something. So I flipped down the eaves and looked at the window of the room that was emitting warm and soft light. However, the view before I flipped down was completely different. At this moment, the room was pitch black, like a bottomless abyss, as if there was no living thing in the room from beginning to end. So what was my experience just now? My scalp almost exploded, my brain was blank, and my breathing began to become rapid, as if someone was pressing on my chest and holding my heart. Even when I was exploring the ghost forest, I had never encountered such a weird and terrifying situation. I have to admit that I succumbed to fear. I ran away from Edgar's house. The last unwillingness prompted me to look back, but I suddenly saw Maya, the Demacia peasant woman, standing at the window with the firelight, looking at me with a stiff face expressionlessly, and waving at me, as if she was saying goodbye to a friend. I fell to the ground and my cheek was scratched by a stone in my clumsiness, but I didn't dare to look back and desperately returned to the temporary residence. I lit all the oil lamps and curled up on the cold blanket to spend an extremely difficult night. In my fatigue and trance, I even had an illusion that the Demacia peasant woman was watching me outside the door. It was not until the sun was high the next day that I gained courage after staying up all night. I heard from the panicked villagers that Edgar's wife and daughter had also disappeared last night. Fossborough has become panic-stricken since then. Everyone knows that an incomprehensible strange thing has come to the village, which will make people disappear completely without any signs. No one knows where those who disappeared went. The flower of fear has quietly blossomed, turning a peaceful village into a hysterical and weird abyss. After evaluating my mental state, I realized that such a horrific incident has exceeded my ability. I know that I can no longer continue to investigate. Hey, you will come to Foxborough in the afternoon. Before that, I will write down the whole process of my investigation, that is, this handwritten secret letter to him, and I will leave with Hey you. Perhaps, only by staying away from Foxborough can I forget that horrible night and get rid of Myers' gaze. Just reading the main part of the secret letter, from the sloppy and trembling handwriting, Lester knew what terrible things the Nightblade killer named Warren had encountered. Fiddlesticks, whose real name is unknown, is the head of the original demon. Fiddlesticks is an evil summoned creature born from the hands of a black magician on the unknown west coast of Demacia. It feeds on people's fear and despair, and can never be defeated. It still came to the Runeland according to the due time trajectory, and began to write its own horror legend. There is no doubt that Edgar's family of 3 died at the hands of Fiddlesticks. After that, more people in Foxborough and even Demacia will die in fear, and become the growth nutrients of Fiddlesticks, making this demon more powerful. Even Warren and Blackfeather, who disappeared with Warren, are inseparable from the Scarecrow. The secret letter was sent by Blackfeather with a carrier pigeon. On the 3rd day after the letter was sent, the 2 people completely lost contact, and did not even leave the border of Demacia. No one knows Fiddlesticks' rules of action and killing methods, but Lester knows that this guy who ignores space likes to run around the world. Whether it is the tundra of Freljord or the islands and reefs of Bilgewater, Fiddlesticks will only appear in places full of fear and devour the frightened souls of humans. The reason why he appeared in Demacia has nothing to do with the Demacians who fear magic. Lester doesn't believe it. There may be other sources of fear, but fear of magic and magicians is definitely a major source of fear. Fortunately, the Emerald Territory was rich and powerful, and there was no source of fear, so the strange Scarecrow would not be attracted. Therefore, Lester, who attached great importance to the second point, only took Fiddlesticks' arrival to heart, but did not care too much. The only pity was that the bodies of Warren and Blackfeather were destined to be lost. Those targeted by Fiddlesticks would disappear without a trace, and no one knew where they went. The third point is also a big challenge faced by the Emerald Territory, at least compared with the northern barbarians who came over mountains and ridges eager to make $0 purchases, but became prisoners of war under the crushing of the Black Iron Guards. It can be regarded as a challenge. As early as a year ago, a 2-legged flying dragon from the Urus Mountains in the north came to make trouble and attacked the people and soldiers of the Emerald Territory. After being repelled by the crossbowmen, it fled far away. The irregular attacks continued until 3 months ago. Margaret and Apsa planned together and ambushed the flying dragon in a depression. Under the crazy attack of the Black Guards and the Dark Blood Crossbow Guards, the flying dragon was seriously injured and left, and never came back. This result made Lester, who was still in the Mage Academy, and was about to return to the Emerald Territory to slay the dragon, give up the idea of returning early. Some of the reasons were that he was entangled by several women, and the man didn't know. But things are far from over. Just last year, a small one was driven away, and soon a larger one came. 3 months have passed, and I have unknowingly written 500,000 words. It is not easy to get to this point today. Thank you to all the book friends who have always supported me. If all goes well, this book with a more realistic and serious style will take a long time to write. I hope everyone can give me more encouragement and attention. Otherwise this book, that discouraged readers in the early stage, will easily be killed by everyone. Without the encouragement of readers, the author's creative passion will soon fade. Chapter 227 Dragon Disaster and Conspiracy. Just a month ago, in the far north of Emerald Territory, a dragon appeared again at the southern foot of the Urus Mountains. The new violent disaster seemed to be angry because of something. The Red Dragon had launched a crazy attack on the northern agricultural area of Emerald Territory at night. The scorching magic dragon breath burned a large area of farmland and orchards. Caught off guard, hundreds of people have died in the dragon disaster, and more than 100 soldiers have died at the hands of the dragon, most of whom are Black Iron Guards, and a few are Shadow Crossbowmen. Fortunately, Apsa skillfully used the Dark Blood Crossbow Guards and the Ice Mage who was good at binding to ambush, and successfully ambushed the dragon that was raging again a week ago, successfully injuring and forcing it to retreat. However, For Lester, injuring and retreating cannot be considered a victory. At least he had to peel off the dragon's skin and tendons to complete the Revenge of Emerald Territory. The tragic result also made Crystal of the War Workshop understand that the Dark Blood Demon crossbow was not a top-notch equipment that was powerful enough to kill dragons at will. The bearded old blacksmith who was it began to work with the genius Flower Rat to develop the Magic Steel Giant crossbow with its own shield, which also made Lester a little worried. Would this old man who was unwilling to admit that he was a Freljord Furnace family forget that he had to hide his identity? Just looking at the design sketch, Lester found it hard to believe that the thing in front of him was not the warrior equipment called Immortal Shield Bow, designed for archers in the game. The only difference was that the new Magic Steel Giant crossbow had been improved by the Flower Rat who knew the basic principles of war machinery in the ruins. In the original bulky crossbow body, there were more delicate mechanical parts such as pulleys or gears, and the performance was better and not as bulky as the original body. But at the beginning, I didn't think there was anything wrong. Now after reorganizing the information, Lester found that the time when the two flying dragons appeared was just when he was still in the Mage Academy and could return to the Emerald Territory, but he didn't have to return to the Emerald Territory. At that time, I stayed in the Mage Academy, mainly to complete the public class and language course review. In addition, I had in-depth academic exchanges with several female mages after studying. I accelerated Alina's recovery through sweaty healthy exercises. I wanted to come back to deal with the dragon disaster, but I couldn't leave for various reasons. It was a coincidence, but I had a vague feeling of being restrained. Lester was very familiar with this feeling. When he was still the ace killer Lesterly, he was secretly arranged by the organization without knowing it. According to this, who in this world would arrange themselves? Who has the ability to arrange themselves? After thinking for a while, putting aside the direct factors that entangled him, Lester couldn't exclude Rose, who went away for business 2 years ago. To be honest, as the incarnation of LeBlanc, Rose had enough reasons to use small tricks to plot against him. After all, that woman always did things by any means necessary. Even if she had feelings for him, she would use her whenever she could when faced with more important interests. What's more, if she used the Emerald Territory to contain the dragon, she wouldn't have to hurt herself. At most, she would just make the Emerald Territory bleed a little. Perhaps thinking this way was a bit self-righteous and self-indulgent, but the man didn't want to make the emotional bond between himself and the first woman in Runeterra too utilitarian. If the two are really related, then she tied me up in the Mage Academy knowing that I have the ability to slay dragons, so that I can't deal with dragons myself. The first dragon never came back after being injured, but the second dragon was in a state of venting anger. If the two are spouses or parent-child relationships, it makes sense. The reason for attacking the Emerald Territory is that the second dragon wants to avenge the first dragon, and the first dragon did not die in the Emerald Territory, but died at the hands of LeBlanc, but the dragons don't know this. It's also very simple to verify this point. Just see if Meredith is influenced by Rose when she approaches me. Unfortunately, Meredith has gone to Demacia now. In addition, Tarina is her own choice, and she should not be influenced by Rose. Rose's jealous look when she broke into Tarina's mage tower doesn't seem to be fake, but Helena. Lester couldn't help but recall that, when he first entered school, Rose said that all the male mages in the Mage Academy would be his enemies. Did Rose have already set up the game at that time? If Helena hadn't used her influence to prevent many non-existent conflicts and troubles, I might have been more passive in the Mage Academy and encountered more troubles. Wait, was Rose's open class on the theme of the World Rune also intentional, just to let Helena target me who might have the World Rune and cause trouble for me? After a series of analyses, the man's face had darkened. Although the suspicion is only speculation at present, without any substantial evidence, if LeBlanc's temper was known in advance, these things would not need evidence. The truly decisive people in power do not rely entirely on evidence. In many things, relying on their own judgment is enough. For some people, motives and beneficiaries are the focus of attention. If you wait until you have evidence before taking action, the opportunity will be gone. Using a 5-year time span to lay out the plan crushing the conspiracy in tenderness and sweetness, disguising one's own purpose as the treasure that others most desire, and the deceived will remain grateful after falling into the trap. As expected of you, LeBlanc, you are really good at tricks. Putting down the confidential information that Margaret had sorted out, Lester tapped the wooden table with his fingers, thinking about the omissions, and the man soon frowned. Meredith went to Demacia. Couldn't it be influenced by LeBlanc? Is LeBlanc trying to kill someone with a borrowed knife? After thinking about it, Lester took out the letter paper and prepared to write a letter to Tally asking for help from Helena. With the woman's network of connections, he should be able to find out why Meredith's friend, Mage Helena, went to Demacia to carry out the mission. If Helena's mission was specially arranged for female mages by the Mage Academy, then from the beginning, the people who planned it had considered that Helena would stay in Demacia, and they knew Meredith's character very well, and they were sure that Meredith would go to find her friend in person after her friend disappeared, and they would be trapped in Demacia's forbidden magic net together. The control of human nature is definitely not something that ordinary people can do. At that time, neither of them can return from Demacia, and the Black Rose law enforcement team does not even have to enter Demacia in person. As long as they take a walk outside and return to the Immortal Bastion, they can say that the two are traitors and have escaped from Demacia. After rolling up the letter and putting it in the mailbox and applying a magic seal, Lester handed it to his men. The letter will be delivered by a carrier pigeon to the secret base of the Nightblade Killer in the Immortal Bastion, and will be delivered to Tally in the Black Rose Mage Academy by a member of the Nightblade Killer. What is your purpose, LeBlanc? When there are more group members, I will consider writing and posting what I can't write. Chapter 228 Sarko's Little Trap. A hidden place surrounded by mountains more than 2,000 kilometers north of the Urus Mountains. The roar of sadness and anger came from a cave from time to time. The tall red-fire dragon lingered on the remaining scent of his wife, lying on the ground in pain, tightly bound by the powerful black magic forbidden chains. It was not until the dagger was revealed that he understood who killed his spouse and who plotted against him. The dozen wounds pierced by the dark blood demon crossbow were easily pierced by the tentacle-like magic, and the other end was connected to a magic container. The refined pure dragon blood would be directly input into the container by magic, keeping it fresh and intact, becoming a top-grade magic material. At the same time, the tentacles from the magic circle would also impose many negative states such as weakness, paralysis, and stiffness on the dragon body. In addition, dragon skin, dragon tendons, dragon bones, and dragon marrow are all materials that need to be taken away. For the female mage, waste is a great shameful behavior. Since one dragon has been dealt with, it is not a problem to deal with another one. Anyway, since they are here, it is the best way to cut off all the clues. After all, this is a gift from a man. LeBlanc put down her staff and sat on a clean big stone with her legs crossed. She supported her chin with her left palm and played with the magic steel dagger. Frost Moon rose in a trance. The female mage stared at the L on the blade and smiled, patiently waiting for the dragon blood to be drained. Since she had this dagger, she has an extra favorite toy, and she always takes it out to play from time to time. The conservative black robe is completely different from the two narrow pieces of cloth in front and behind that were slit to the thigh root before. It was changed by some sudden factors. The female mage now put the slit part to the calf, and the bottom is no longer the cool style of the north and south pieces of cloth. The female mage now lacks the temptation of the past, and is more dignified. Even though no one would see her naked body, the female mage didn't want other men to see her naked body, because a domineering man didn't like it. The female mage had to admit that she was still being manipulated by a man she manipulated, and she got used to many of the man's habits, and her style and personality changed. That man could easily break through the sensory limitations between the clone and the original body, and let the original body become a out of control state, with 100% sensory synchronization with a clone. This ability made the female mage both excited and terrified. Especially after the man defeated the big rat, he improved the characteristics of the original rune. In addition to the original sensory synchronization, he also had the blissful pleasure of being full of vitality in the process of doing things. This was a deadly poison that was even better than the original sensory stimulation and could not be rejected by any life. So much so that, while the man was studying at the academy, the female mage would reduce the frequency of meetings to once every few months. Otherwise, the female mage herself would not dare to guarantee that she would continue to do it like crazy as before. After being completely poisoned, would the completely depraved original body personally run to the man to request in-depth communication and become a poor hapless person who lost himself? Roar. The unwilling dragon roar echoed in the dragon's nest. The female mage raised her eyebrows, lifted the staff with her toes, and increased the output amplitude of the curse magic. You still have the energy to roar. It seems that you are really not ordinary. Facing the hateful vertical pupils of the male fire dragon, LeBlanc smiled and was very happy. You and your wife will help me complete an unprecedented forbidden magic. You should be happy about it. This is much more meaningful than your boring dragon life of 100 years. Smile. It will not hurt soon. The dragon roar in the mountains became weaker and weaker, and finally at a certain moment, it was completely silent. The underground fortress of the shimmering Silver Mountains. In a separate small compartment, the pale boy sat in front of the workbench, carefully inserted the tweezers into the small metal box, inserted a key metal rod into the gear that controls the spring, and slowly pressed it down. With a crisp click, the multifaceted metal rod was buckled into the prefabricated slot. The shell of the small metal box made of iron was instantly tightened. Any slight external force would cause the 5 sides of the small metal box to be bounced open by the spring. As long as the long spikes were installed in the specific position of the cylinder, driven by the transmission force of the gear, the large spring in the cylinder would release the continued mechanical energy, allowing the long spikes to be ejected in 4 directions. After confirming that the cylinder was empty, the boy carefully held the bottom of the trap box and placed it on the open space outside the work cubicle. Under the curious gazes of others, the boy stepped back a few steps and mustered up his courage to throw out the long branch that he had prepared long ago. The moment the long branch hit the metal box, the 5 sides other than the bottom surface instantly bounced up and flew outward, and there were exclamations from the crowd. The big spring made a slight sound and stretched out fiercely, ejecting the non-existent long spikes, which bounced off the metal rod and fell to the ground. The boy jumped nimbly to avoid the metal piece flying towards him. Hearing the exclamations in his ears, the boy with bowed legs was secretly happy, but he nodded humbly and gestured to the people around him before he began to pack up his little trap. Next time, I can try to install the spikes, but it would be better if I could use more convenient magic to complete the loading work. The boy knew that he had a talent for magic, but he didn't know why the wizard user who taught him was unwilling to teach those powerful black magics, and only taught some basic meditation methods and magic sensing abilities. Hey little Sarko, did you succeed? Just after cleaning up the mess, some funny voices came from behind. The boy turned around and smiled at the flower face mouse who greeted him. He bowed slightly, making the white mouse with black D-shaped spots on his face look a little softer. Yes, Mr. Flower Mouse. Hey, don't call me Mr. Call me Huaha, Zaha, or Zaha teacher. The flower mouse took a few steps forward, patted the shoulder of the inferior boy who was the same height as him, and smiled kindly. After spending some time together, he was no longer afraid of this somewhat gloomy child. Instead, he liked him very much, because this child liked to learn, was patient, and of course, most importantly, knew how to respect rats. Teacher Huaha, can I call you that? The boy was very respectful and grateful to Huazi Rat, who taught him a lot about mechanics. Of course, we are good friends. By the way, I have already made the custom spikes you wanted. You can go to the workshop to pick them up when you have time. By the way, I will teach you how to grind and make spikes. Once you learn it, you can make them yourself on the workbench. Alas, I forgot that you are still a child and always treated you as an adult. It is still very dangerous for you to use a mechanical furnace now. Chapter 229 Development of the Underground Fortress. Listening patiently to the rat chattering in front of him for a long time, Sarko did not feel impatient at all. His years of experience in shackles and underground life had already made him patient. Until he heard the voice of his teacher, the Nightblade Assassin Tiles. Sarko, Come here, the master is looking for you. Okay, teacher Tiles, I'll be there right away. The boy's eyes lit up, and he rarely showed a look of expectation on his face. He said goodbye to the rat with an apologetic look, hurriedly put his gadgets back on the workbench in the compartment, and ran to the man with a cold face. Glancing at his outstanding students, Tiles nodded. Let's go, Sako, don't forget your own identity in front of the master. Watching the two people leave, the rat wanted to be lazy, hesitated for a moment, but still followed them. After all, the world is big, and the Lord is the greatest. In the ruins workshop, Lester, who was inspecting the workshop machinery, saw the boy who had grown a lot taller, and also saw the rat following behind the two. The shrew in the pretty pink coat was fine. Sako's bow legs seemed to have not been corrected yet, but his back was not as hunched as before. Master. Sako knelt on both knees and buried his head in the ground. After looking at the inferior boy as always, Lester looked at Tiles. Tiles, has Sako's skin disease been cured? Tiles knelt on one knee, bent down, put his right fist on his heart, and said respectfully, Master, by drinking the alchemical potion, Sako's skin disease has been completely cured. He is no longer afraid of sunlight, but his bow legs cannot be corrected. How much has he learned from you? Sako is very talented in setting traps and making killing tools. He can do two things at the same time. He has mastered the methods of making many common traps. He is currently creating his own trap tools and has made some progress. Two things at the same time. Yes, he can do different things with both hands. This is a great talent. Lester's face was a little strange. Sako's trap tool, can't it be a box? Master has been paying attention to me. Sako, who was crawling on the ground, opened his eyes wide and couldn't help grinning. Ah, Master, how did you know? Sako just took out the design box for trial today. Sorry, Master, I'm rude. Tiles first looked up in surprise and looked at the Cumlord in confusion, then realized his mistake and lowered his head again. Get up, Tiles, you have worked hard over the years. Sako, you should get up too. After both of them got up, Lester looked at the squirrel who tried to reduce his presence as much as possible. Zaha, how is your work going? Is the rune energy converter ready? Lord Lester, it's mainly because Lord Blacksmith Crystal always comes to me to discuss the design of new weapons, so it has delayed a lot of work. Of course, this is definitely not shirking responsibility. I just feel ashamed that I can't take care of both ends. However, the new energy container has completed 80% of the testing, and the rest is testing and continuous improvement. The design will be completed within 2 years and the rune energy converter will be operational. Knowing that Ua's issue was not lying, Lester naturally would not dampen Shushu's interest in work, so he praised him. Zaha, you did a good job. Lord, this is what I should do. Looking at Sako who was bowing his head again, Lester took 2 steps forward and patted the boy's thin shoulder. Sako raised his head with longing. Sako, learn from Tiles well. By the way, User said that your magic talent is very special. He has never seen it and cannot teach it. This is quite rare. As he spoke, Lester took the boy's right hand and began to detect it with perception magic. The boy lowered his head with a blush as the man held his hand. Even though he hadn't seen him for 2 years, the man's face was deeply imprinted in his mind, as if they had just parted yesterday. However, 2 years later, the boy found that his master seemed to have aged a lot from his appearance alone. What was puzzling was that his aura was still full of power. Under Lester's magical perception, a dark gas mass seemed to be lingering in Sako's body, which was obviously the magic element absorbed by the boy through meditation. However, the essence of the gas mass was not the common natural element talent, water, earth, wind, fire, nor was it the mutant element talent, ice, thunder, light, and darkness. It seemed to be some unique and rare talent. Lester didn't know what the specific attributes and characteristics were, but considering the clown's skills in the game, it might be a talent for space teleportation or a talent for copying the original body. Perhaps only Rose could see it. Sako was a little flustered when he found that his master also frowned, but fortunately the man's voice comforted the poor boy who was not confident in time. It should be some kind of relatively powerful rare ability. I need to find a more professional mage to help you find out what it is. User is right. If you rashly learn magic without knowing your talent, you can only destroy your talent. Now just keep meditating and practicing magic perception. The upper limit of your own magic reserve is also a very important part of a mage. After thoroughly understanding user's painstaking efforts, the grudge in Sako's heart disappeared, and he lowered his head respectfully. I understand, Master Lester. It was already afternoon when they left the shimmering Silver Mountains. Lester used a magic beacon to summon Shur and headed north. In the area near the Urus Mountains, Lester saw more than a dozen tall stone sentry towers. The closer to the north, the more there were, especially in the inner and outer areas of the agricultural area. The two small towers that could station troops were particularly eye-catching. After a quick inspection, Lester found the Narxum Black Iron Guard Corps stationed at the outermost edge and signaled Shur to land. The unique fine steel armor and the tall and handsome silver-winged dragon bat would naturally not be attacked by the soldiers of the Emerald Lord. Margaret waved to several deputies, dispersed the team, took the initiative to meet the dragon bird that fell from the sky, and looked at the masked man. Lord Lester, you are here. Lester jumped off Zaya's body, touched the cute big guy, and gave the dragon bat the command to move freely. Then he approached Margaret. What's the situation? The female general's face was full of traces of the years, like an immortal wall that had experienced countless wars. The two-legged fire dragon has not come for half a month. Our ambush did not work. But by coincidence, we captured a lot of barbarians from the north, about 100 or so. I don't know how they crossed the Urus Mountains to the south. I also tried to let the scouts cross the mountains, but the fact is that without enough cold-resistant clothes and survival ability, there is no way to cross the snow-capped mountains, where there is no grass. Lord Lester, what should we do with those barbarian captives? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 10 Years of Wine, 100 Years of Mellowness. Tell me what you think. There are enough slave laborers now. I think it's time to open the road of glory for the Emerald Territories arena. Seeing that they can cross the snow-capped mountains with bare chests, they must have good physique and fighting ability. Throwing them into the arena and letting them become the first batch of gladiators is just right. Our soldiers also want to see who is stronger with the barbarians of Freljord with the same equipment. Take off the mask. Looking at the mature female general with a face full of excitement, Lester gently reached out and touched the woman's rough cheek along the woman's hideous scars. The man smiled. You are so old, but you are still as excited as a child. Let's do it this way. Throw them into the arena. Margaret looked at the man whose face was beginning to age. While feeling a little regretful, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and turned her attention to the conversation. Yes. With just 2 words, the fate of more than 100 Freljord bandits was determined. How many days did the dragon launch attacks before? At most, it would launch an attack every 10 days. If it fails to cause effective damage, it could be 3 days. There are more than a dozen ambushes like this in the direction it moves south. Most of the Black Iron Guards are here. I have also divided the Dark Blood Crossbow Guards into small teams and hid with the Legion. As the two were talking, a black guard approached them on tiptoe. Noticing the approach, Margaret smiled meaningfully. Lord Lester, I will go and adjust the arrangement first. Alice will report the rest to you. Alice, come and report to Lord Lester. Yes, Commander. Lester stood at attention and saluted in one go. He looked at the clumsy woman who was already 26 years old with a gentle look. Let's not talk about other places. In Naxos alone, there are many women who get married and have children at the age of 14. If you don't get married at the age of 20, you can be called an old woman. Not to mention, a woman who is still pure at the age of 26 will be looked at with discrimination. Although the situation in Emerald Territory is not serious, Lester does not believe that such a situation does not exist. Where there are people, there are slander and disputes. This is human nature and can never be changed. Lord, please allow Alice to report to you. just saying a simple sentence. Alice always felt that she was doing extreme physical training. Okay, report. The man smiled and nodded. This. Lord, I can now shoot 3 shots in 1 second. The next goal is to shoot 4 shots. The woman's embarrassed face was like the sunset that overturned the orange red dye vat, turning from white to red one by one. She just saw the man she admired and secretly loved coming back, and she just wanted to get close to him. There was no situation to report. At this moment, she could only be at a loss in panic. Alice, you must have a lot of sweeters, right? Why don't you find a man who suits you and marry him? Lester would not say such a thing. That would ruin the mood and hurt people's hearts. A woman's feelings for him, whether it's worship, respect, or infatuation, are always sincere and pure. The dedication of youth and loyalty should not be wasted. This is the promise he made to Alina. He took a step forward, opened his arms, gently hugged the bewildered black guard soldier, and kissed the woman on the forehead. The woman was stunned for a moment, and the magic steel spear that she had not let go of, even when she was dying, slipped from her hand and fell heavily to the ground. The soldiers around were envious, jealous, indifferent, and blessed. At Margaret's signal, they all dispersed with smiles on their faces, leaving enough space for the two. If all Narxus girls are silly girls like you, then I'll have a lot of work to do. My lord, I've been waiting for this day for 10 years. The man didn't say anything, but lowered his head, aimed at the woman's trembling lips, and kissed her again. The woman hugged the man with her backhand, and her nose began to feel sore, and her eyes soon became wet and red. Alice felt as if she had returned to that noon 10 years ago. At the age of 16, she passed all the training and assessments, and joined the Narxan Black Iron Guard. For the first time, she put on the Black Iron Guard armor and long sword, stationed at the entrance of the mine for the first time, and accepted the mission of fighting for the first time. Then, for the first time, she was ordered to be a discarded child to cover the rear, and was brought out of the terrible mine alive by the Lord who changed the plan. For 10 years, she recalled what happened in the mine that day every day and night, thinking about what would happen if she stayed in the mine to death. However, she found that, no matter how she recalled it, the face of the man and the encouraging kiss on her forehead would always be in the end. This kiss has been with me for 10 years, motivating me to keep moving forward. From a recruit of the Black Iron Guard, I eventually became a glorious Black Guard warrior, and also became the successor of the Legion designated by Margaret. Although the ultimate dream of becoming the Lord's personal guard is still a long way off, it is much closer than before, and it seems that I have a greater mission on my shoulders. However, the man's figure is always out of reach, and I waited for a man without any promise for 10 years with my longing and illusory expectations. How many decades are there in a short life? For a girl who only has less than 10 years of youth, the long-lasting waiting and wasting are enough to drain everyone's patience. For Alice, perhaps, I have long given up all expectations and the ambiguous waiting, and turned deep emotions into supreme loyalty. I have long turned my expectations into a calmness that is not surprised by praise or criticism, but Alice never thought that the 10-year wait suddenly had a clear result. The man I admired finally expressed his attitude and recognized me. Accepted a 26-year-old woman. I'm sorry, it was a worthless action, but it made you wait for 10 years. His voice was like water flowing around floating ice, gentle enough to melt any cold and hard shell, but the man felt extremely despicable. From this point of view alone, Helena was even cleaner than himself. Shaking her head, the woman who had already crushed her strength into her cold and hard skeleton had stopped the tears of the weak. Alice said softly, "That was not a worthless action, sir. It was the determination to encourage me to keep moving forward. You took my heart so easily, a heart that I was willing to sink, and you also responded to my emotions. These 10 years of waiting are meaningful." Staring at the Narxan girl in front of him, Lester deeply felt the charm of Narxan women. Whether it is Margaret or Alice, they are loyal, strong, and pursue the glory brought by war and merit. Such excellent women can live for themselves, have better and more comfortable choices and lives, but they are willing to unconditionally dedicate everything for their own ideals. They fight on the battlefield day after day for 10 years and are willing to wait for 10 years for the man they identify with, willing to forget that they are actually a woman whose beauty is fleeting. This is a woman like top grade liquor, just like the Voltiki Blood Rose, produced in the Immortal Fortress. It is obviously an elegant and mellow red wine, but it is as strong as a ball of first fire that melts the iceberg. It is suppressed underground and remains as still as a mountain, and it erupts violently through the sky and goes straight up to the sky. Whether it is life or death, this kind of woman lives a vigorous life. Even if it is left for 10 years, just one sip is enough to intoxicate people. Alice, you said you would be a sword that cuts through thorns for me, and you did it. I also want to do something for you. Tell me, as long as I can do it. With her head buried in the man's arms, Alice revealed her shy dimples. The innocent girl who had not yet experienced the world of love proposed a wish that was the simplest for a woman in her opinion. I want a child. So, in front of the woman, a groundhog standing on 2 feet and roaring silently suddenly appeared. Who will give Lord Lester a groundhog picture? Chapter 231 Signs. The flying dragon never came back. The Narcs and Black Iron Guard leaders' layout lost its effect. After the only lord with a flying mount deliberately patrolled and investigated thousands of kilometers to the north, the returning lord stopped the meaningless garrison. Lester has always been very concerned about the cause and effect of the dragon disaster, but he also knows that this is not something that can be investigated in a short time. In addition to the dragon disaster, recruiting evil little wizards, and investigating Meredith's progress in finding the Helia wizard are also key matters that need to be carried out urgently. The former can provide a strong trump card for the Emerald Territory, and the latter, not to mention whether Meredith can prove that Rose is involved in the conspiracy, simply from the perspective of caring about the safety of close friends. Lester will not let Meredith be trapped in Demacia. For this reason, Lester deliberately sent the Nightblade Killer novels, who is best at socializing and entertaining, witty, changeable, experienced, and handsome, to Demacia with 3 other juniors. Even Lester, who was indifferent and tolerant of lust, could only silently refuse the abnormal feelings that Northless had for him after his madness, and wanted to force Northless to find a suitable beautiful wife, at least to make the man stop having improper thoughts about him, and pass on Northless's bloodline. Although Northless's appearance and temperament were indeed perfect, after he disguised himself as his fiancée, Helena, even better than most women, Lester was very sure that he still had a basic bottom line for the gender of his partner above appearance, and this principle had made Zaya depressed for a long time. It seemed that he knew that his pursuit was doomed to fail. Northless had always kept his love in his heart and his loyalty outside his chest. He had never expressed anything to the man he liked, which also made the 2 sides less embarrassed in the process of getting along. One day, Lester took the Angel Sisters out of the underground secret vault, where magic items were hidden, got on the carriage, and went directly to the arena. Before the arena was fully opened, Lester was going to carefully check the construction results of the arena. The man was also going to hand over the arena to Jis. The barbarian sister had studied with Margaret for many years and had rich experience in commanding troops, which was just right for commanding the new army. The new army would be born in the arena and would be a punitive army composed entirely of prisoners of war and death row prisoners. This was in line with the joke he made many years ago about letting Jis be the first to enter the arena. The man clearly remembered the girl's face as white as tinfoil when she heard what he said. Thinking back to what happened in the past, Lester smiled softly, which attracted the attention of the black-haired girl. In the carriage, Hina pulled at the man's deliberately unshaved beard, with a look of surprise on her face. I thought you would never get old, Brother Lester, but I didn't expect you still have such a long beard. In order to make the women around him less suspicious, Lester deliberately used Macupe to make his face look a little older, and he didn't shave his beard. For his ageless face, the man couldn't think of any good way for the time being, so he could only take it one step at a time. Maybe he was just aging slowly. He touched the girl's head with his right hand wearing a satin white glove, and the soft and ink-like hair slid through his fingers. The girl squinted comfortably, obviously liking the man's intimate behavior. After stroking the delicate and cute ears, Lester's hand still stopped on Hina's right cheek and pinched it gently. The man wanted to find the chubby feeling in the past. Unfortunately, with the growth, the cute baby fat is gone, and the girl's facial lines gradually become perfect, like a beautiful painting carefully painted by God, and any outline can easily interpret what is beautiful. This is true for the younger sister and the older sister. It must be said that, if we don't talk about wings, this pair of sisters also deserves the name of Angel. Do you like brother's big beard? Yes, the girl who likes to express intimacy with actions directly put her face on the man's beard and slid it. Feeling the exciting tingling sensation, the girl clamped her legs and stretched her toes. I like everything about Brother Lester. I like it the most. The love words that were no different from confession were casually said by the girl, causing dissatisfaction from the sister sitting on the other side of the man. Zinna, you are no longer the little girl in the past. You should become more mature and stop causing trouble for Lester all the time. I didn't cause trouble for Brother Lester, it's you, mishap. You just want to do this, but you are embarrassed, right? Lulu, you rude guy. Don't you even call me sister? Don't you call me brother too? What qualifications do you have to say to me? Humph. I don't share the same opinion with the childish ghost, who likes to make faces. As for the two girls, who are now different from the original timeline, Lester can't guarantee how the future will develop, but he also understands that no matter what, the two sisters will not hurt him. With this basic point, he can use other more appropriate ways to guide and control the Angel sisters. So the man chose to go straight to the point. You are already 16 years old this year, and you are not young anymore. Have you ever considered marrying me this year? Hearing what the man said, the blonde girl was obviously stunned. Her brain crashed, and she lost the ability to think. Great. Brother Lester, when will you marry Hina? On the other side, the black-haired girl sat directly on the man's thighs, hugged the man's waist, and whispered in his ear with a smile. In fact, tonight his fine, such an unpolished natural charm made the man a little overwhelmed, and he could only turn his head slightly to avoid the girl's cherry red soft pink lips. There was no doubt that the person sitting on him was a man-eating goblin. Zinna, sometimes being too proactive may make people not appreciate you. I only take the initiative with Brother Lester. If Brother Lester doesn't appreciate you, Zinna will be very sad. For some reason, even though the girl was smiling, the man always felt a chill. He couldn't help but wonder if it was too easy for him to let Morris and his family go to the quiet forest to cut trees for half a year. There is a mountain villa for vacation in the quiet forest. Sensing the faint black air, Lester wisely changed the subject. By the way, I heard that Kiram is not in a good state recently. What happened? Hearing Lester talking about his father, Miss Ha came back to her senses, lowered her head with a gloomy face, and said nothing. Zinna also lost the urge to seduce the man. She sighed softly and leaned on the man's chest, her tone a little heavy. Dad had a nightmare that he will never forget in his life, a nightmare that he doesn't want to think about. What nightmare? If possible, can you tell me about it? Nodding slightly, Zinna whispered. Dad, he dreamed of my mom, the mom who abandoned us, and my sister, and I also dreamed of a mother with wings. In just a moment, the man's smile froze. Tomorrow, the mother-in-law will appear, and the appearance will be the peak. Chapter 232 Deep Purple Broken Dream. The planet filled with a dead atmosphere is like a black and purple festering scar in the starry sky. Void scars that do not belong to the material world span tens of thousands of kilometers on the land of the planet and lead directly to the abyss of the Earth's core. The fragments of the Earth's core eroded by the power of the void are deeply voided and are drawn out by thick dark purple pipes like countless giant insect eggs and slowly sent into the mouthparts of a huge void beast that is hundreds of thousands of kilometers in size and is lying on the ground with a straw in its mouth. The void beast that sucks the core of the planet is still growing in size, ranging from as small as hundreds of kilometers to as large as millions of kilometers. There are hundreds of these star devourers in various forms. They are scattered all over the planet, just like blood-sucking ticks that quickly suck everything out of the planet, wipe out all the existence on the planet to strengthen themselves, and then give birth to countless void monsters with optimized genes and destructive instincts. They continue to evolve through fighting each other and purify the most perfect and powerful genes. After the planet is completely broken up, the new Void Monitor will look for the next world to be destroyed, locate the new world through the Void Beacon, and build the foundation before the invasion. When the Void Beacon is completely stable and the portal is opened, the Void Beasts that destroyed the previous world will descend on the new world and make the new world void again. During this period, in addition to the void itself, it would be better if there were other lives as enemies for the void itself to devour. However, this is just the idea of the void, and no sane person wants to face the void. As an enemy of the void, Misira, the righteous star spirit servant who came to the void erosion zone in person and mastered the power of the star spirit, was very desperate. The dozen or so celestial mages accompanying them had already all become food for the void monsters. 2 months had passed since they landed on this long dead planet. 2 months of sleepless, never-ending fighting and conquest had almost drained all the vitality of the star spirit god servant, but in the end, they had killed billions of ordinary void evolvers and 8 void destroyers, as well as the destruction of 14 planet devourers. The above seemingly brilliant results were only a drop in the bucket for the planet that had been completely eroded by the power of the void. Both this planet and the void monsters were too big for one person. The planet eroded by the void was also strengthened under the protection of the void, and ordinary divine attacks would be greatly weakened and damaged. It was extremely difficult to destroy such a planet. Misira knew that, if the Justice Star Spirit completely annihilated her consciousness and controlled her body to attack, she might be able to do better. Not only could she kill most of the devourers of planets, but if she went all out, she might be able to successfully destroy the void planet. However, the Justice Star Spirit was now greedily focusing on her 2 daughters, and she didn't care about her slave who kept fighting on the void planet. Arsehole. Amid the woman's roar, the Starfire Rune Blade, forged by the power of the Star Spirit, once again burst into a dazzling flame that penetrated the sky. The powerful Star Spirit artifact sucked up all the magic element within 1,000 miles. It was just because the Starfire Rune Blade had absorbed and exploded many times, and the concentration of magic element on the planet was reduced due to the rampant power of the void. Therefore, even if the magic element were within 1,000 miles, they would only form a kilometer level rune energy slash. The slash barely severely injured the slightly injured devourer of planets, exposing the fatal weakness hidden in its fat and thick body, which was the fleshy void core that emitted a deep purple light and looked like a biological blood vessel. Without hesitation, Misira waved her pale purple flesh wings that had been eroded by the void for more than half, constantly adjusting her body to avoid the oncoming deadly rays, and launched a close-range attack on the devourer of planets that was healing its wounds. The Starfire Rune Blade burned all the void tentacles that blocked the way along the way, killing the void beasts that blocked the way one after another. Misira successfully entered the body of the devourer of planets, and with all her strength, she pierced the Starfire Rune Blade into the void core that was 100 meters in size and looked like a large dark purple tumor. The toothpick-like Starfire Rune Blade emitted a strong light, cracking the tough defense of the void core and completely tearing the already unstable evolutionary core apart. The void energy transformed from the power of the planet erupted from the void core, and the purple corrosive, harmonious light shot straight up to the sky above the starry sky and diffused to all parts of the universe. After the rays landed, they would descend on the life forms and merge deeply with them, causing them to initially become void. As the degree of voidization deepened, the voided life would begin to believe in and worship the void, and would actively create void beacons through various sacrifices. Void beacons can provide cosmic coordinates for mature void monitors, allowing them to locate the location of new worlds with life and start a new journey of destruction. However, when the void rays erupted by the planet devourer just flew out of the completely destroyed atmosphere, the beautiful deep purple rays were completely annihilated by the huge divine shield that enveloped the entire void planet, preventing the void rays from leaving the planet at all. It was not until the rays completely disappeared that the spiritual voice that could be transmitted in the vacuum began to erupt. Buzz. Amid the numbing buzzing sound, a large pit thousands of kilometers wide and hundreds of meters deep appeared on the deep purple voided ground. The huge explosion was accompanied by the fragments of the corpses of the planet devourers, which spread to a radius of 10,000 miles. The swarming void beasts had no time to join the carnival of killing foreign life, and became ecstatic in the rain of corpse fragments. Every void beast that longed for killing and destruction accepted the gift from the sky and madly sent the fragments of the highest level corpses of its own kind into its mouth, absorbing the violent and powerful evolutionary energy. Grasping and absorbing the remains of the planet devourers, many of the already powerful void beasts began to evolve deeply on the spot. Under the protection of the void cocoon, the void beasts that originally could not fly grew wings that could fly, and the void beasts that had never been in contact with seawater had gill-shaped mouthparts and scales that could breathe in the sea, or had chitinous scales that were immune to most magic and sharp claws that were sharp enough to tear steel. At the end of evolution, the void beasts can enter the final evolution and choose to become void monitors who explore and locate new worlds, planet devourers who destroy new worlds with powerful assimilation abilities, or void destroyers that focus on killing and annihilating all living things. While the void beast was still evolving crazily, the cracked divine shield was already on the verge of breaking, like broken glass, and it was broken into countless tiny and dense fluorescent bright spots, which slowly drifted away in the vacuum, completely exposing the dying owner to the void environment. The divine armor made of divine power had completely broken. The naked Mysera wanted to use a starfire rune blade to support her body, but she staggered because of exhaustion. The woman retracted the broken purple wings that were only half left in the explosion, and fell down in the center of the pit in a panic. Even so, the woman did not let go of the divine sword in her hand. Fighting until she stopped breathing was the final mission given to her by the righteous star spirit. The woman, who was almost naked and deeply eroded by the void energy, understood that her beauty no longer existed, just like her withering life, heading towards the end in the silent void world. Without the divine shield that protected her body, hundreds of dark purple hideous blood vessels quickly grew on her body. The ugly proliferating tumor on her chest replaced the original beautiful mountain peak. The disgusting purple scar happily oozes purple pus and dark saliva, further corroding the crystallized ground. The woman used her last strength to roll over her body, keeping her face upward. One of her eyes had rotted away and turned into a void flesh granulation black hole. The only remaining lavender fleshy eye looked at the beautiful starry sky that was out of reach, trying her best to resist the deep fatigue that could not be resisted by will. Whether it was physical or mental, the woman had entered a state of exhaustion. Mysera, who was in chaos, could no longer tell whether it was because her eyes had been completely eroded by the void, turning her world into a dazzling purple sky, or because this world was originally a desperate purple. In the world of the void, the light eroded by the void energy will be rendered dark purple, and even the bright starry sky will be covered with a purple mysterious veil. Purple, purple, purple everywhere. Everything is purple. However, no matter how beautiful it is, as long as you personally go to the world of the void and take a walk, you will completely understand how ugly, how terrible, how disgusting and eager to exterminate life this beautiful purple world is. The essence of purple is the void and deep space, and it is a dead silence. The roar of the void beasts in her ears became louder and louder, and the battle had not stopped. She wanted to raise the starfire blade, but she found that she had no strength to move her fingers. Unknowingly, her life journey had been controlled by others, and was heading towards a desperate end. It's over. The Justice Star Spirit was very satisfied with Mysera, the vessel that had fully exerted the concept of justice, and finally chose to release the bound soul. The power of the Star Spirit was dissipating, peeling off from the woman's body, and returning to the source of the starry sky. In the rising dots of divine starlight, there was a moment when the purple world in the woman's eyes disappeared, and the starry sky returned to its original splendor. The woman released the spark rune blade that changed her life with relief. Her gentle gaze passed through the ferocious void beasts, the magnificent sky that blocked the void rays, the eternal and boundless universe, the magnificent star spirit realm, and the world barrier of Runeland. She landed gently, contentedly, and happily at the foot of the giant god peak. The woman saw two lovely baby girls being held by a gentle man, walking towards her with joy on their faces. The woman also saw it, and she happily went forward to hug the man, wrapping her two daughters in her arms, as if they were one and the same, just like the most ordinary and intimate couple. The woman smiled and looked at her husband, Ziram, tenderly. Mysera, what should we name our daughter? You pick one, and I pick one. Then, let's call our eldest daughter Mishap. Haha, Mishap, that sounds nice. Then my baby daughter will be called Zina. Mishap is your sister, call her sister. Your mother is Misilla, and your father is Kiram, call her mother, call her father. The woman held her eldest daughter Mishap, and the man held her youngest daughter Zina. The family of four left the giant god peak. The man did not suffer the cold eyes of his wife, and the woman did not grow any wings behind her. She didn't want any tribe, any divine power, any blessings, or any wings. She only wanted her home. Kiram, Mishap, Zina. Tears flashing with purple light slid down from the corners of her eyes, and the mottled starlight dissipated. The eyes of the woman who had completely become an ordinary person dimmed in an instant. The woman's eyes were open, but she still looked at the purple starry sky, chasing an unreachable broken dream. The fastest winged void beast greedily shed purple saliva, and the next moment it was about to bite off the woman's head and feast on it. At the critical moment, a spear emitting golden light fell from the sky and pierced the winged void beast. The shockwave directly shattered thousands of void beasts approaching Miss Hera. A thick braided woman wearing ancient golden body armor and a helmet appeared out of thin air in front of the magic spear, made of star-colored gems, and calmly pulled out the magic spear. The War Star Spirit picked up the intact Starfire rune blade with a calm expression and glanced at the woman who died with his blood-red eyes filled with tyranny. You only killed a few voids. You are really a waste that can't be beaten. The war spear was raised high and then fell heavily, along with the longing eyes like perfect amethysts, and the majestic divine power shattered the woman who had lost the blessing of the Star Spirit into pieces. The power of the Justice Star Spirit has been recovered by the constellation, and the responsibility of the War Star Spirit is only to recover the Star Spirit artifacts and destroy this void planet. Now the first step has been completed. Bending his knees, with the spear in front of him, before the repelled void beast pounces again, the War Star Spirit jumps up, turns into a stream of light and rushes out of the planet, passes through the planet shield that isolates the void energy, and stops in the vast universe. The War Star Spirit put away the Starfire rune blade with divine power, and grabbed it out of thin air. An invisible chain made of the finest celestial material appeared in his hand. The Titan pulled hard with his right hand. Under the restraint of the Star Curse, the starry sky dragon, whose eyes were only the size of stars, staggered and slowly approached the Titan. The mighty dragon, who was wandering outside the void planet and providing energy for the planet shield that isolated the void from erosion, was like a dog on a leash at the moment. The funny thing was that the crown that the star dragon loved the most, which was given to the creator by the creature and symbolized glory and love, became the culprit of the humble fall of the mighty one because of the despicable conspiracy and calculation, and was deceived by the giant god. Naturally, he would not care about the dog's thoughts. He had long been impatient with the deep purple in front of him, and the War Star Spirit Pantheon made a tyrannical voice. Dragon. A dozen brown braids swayed in the starry sky. The War Star Spirit pointed the star-colored magic gun at the deep purple planet wrapped in the light shield, and there was unquestionable dominance in his red eyes. Destroy them. This chapter has 4,000 words, 2 in 1. I hope everyone can enjoy it. In addition, tomorrow, the bad Poppy will be offline, and the explosive Poppy will be online. How much stock Poppy can produce depends on everyone's support. PS. It's exciting to think about the scenes in the future where Lestat fights for life and death with various Protoss in the universe. The Void, Protoss, Dragon Kings, and Badlands. This is a world-destroying disaster. The Dark Inn is not quite there yet. I hope that everyone can continue to accompany Lestat on his growth and picking up girls journey, making this book a unique chronicle of the League of Legends. Chapter 233 Sleepless Night, Broken Winged Morning Star. Miss Hilla. Missy Isla. Kiram sat up suddenly from the bed, tears streaming down his face. He didn't know why he was sad and crying, but the man couldn't stop crying. He seemed to have dreamed of the woman he dared not dream of. He wanted to recall the beauty in the dream, but the man found that the more he recalled the woman, the more sad his heart became. Woo woo woo. The crying middle-aged man was like a half-grown child who had lost something precious. His fists were clenched, his knuckles turned white, and he suppressed his unwilling roar in his heart-wrenching lungs, but he didn't dare to cry loudly, for fear of affecting his 2 daughters who were sleeping upstairs. The man didn't know that, while he was crying silently, his 2 daughters also woke up, their faces pale and ugly. Sister. Sister. The 2 girls looked at each other and saw the tears flashing in the corners of the sister's eyes. Sister, why are you crying? Sister, I'm so sad, really sad, I don't know, I just want to cry. Me too, I've never felt this way before, it's like I've lost something precious. Pressing her chest, Miss Hap, at a loss, tried to wipe away her tears, but soon found that such behavior was in vain, and her stubborn behavior made her cry out loud. Woo woo woo. Sister, don't let dad hear it, he will be very sad. Silently crying, Hina hugged her sister, and her sister hugged her sister, comforting each other in sadness. That night, 3 people were completely sleepless, immersed in unspeakable grief. That night, a man stood beside the map, staring at a magnificent peak in the west of Shurima. His eyes were cold and serious, thinking for a long time. The man sighed, and the candle gradually went out. Above the starry sky, a bright meteor streaked across, glanced at the runeland indifferently, and returned to the constellation in the blink of an eye. Still high above, the sun rose as usual. The endless Eurus mountains, snow flying, dragons and birds dancing. A dozen trolls were entrenched in a warm cave, roasting a bonfire. Under the beautiful dance of Bangchu, dancing his legs at the entrance of the cave, he pulled out the half-cooked yak leg on the stick from the flames, opened his big front teeth, and put it into his mouth. He bit it, and blood spurted out, but the troll's yellow gap teeth were happily exposed. A group of frail-jawed people who were eager to plunder in the south ran to surround the helpless snow antelope. After the snow antelope was desperate, they took the innocent life with their spears and happily carried the food for half a day back to the simple camp. At the foot of the mountain, groups of snow wolves passed through the snow curtain, baring their fangs to threaten the 2-meter-tall white bear that was eating a snow deer in the distance. After the harassment, the wolves could no longer bear the hunger, and rushed forward, harassing and attacking the white bear frantically. The white bear had to loosen its smelly mouth and slap the snow wolf's head with its heavy paw, causing the brains of 2 snow wolves that were unable to escape to splatter. But the other snow wolves achieved their goal and took away less than half of the remaining snow deer carcass. The successful snow wolf quickly fled with its tail between its legs amid the angry roar of the white bear. The battle for food ended as quickly as lightning, and the half-full white bear roared a few times, turned around and left sullenly. In this vast snowy mountain, a lonely figure loomed in the wind and snow, passing through one piece after another of endless snow curtains covering the sky, passing by the happy and blissful troll cave, avoiding the frail-jawed barbarians who were going further and further on the road to plunder, bypassing the foraging snow wolves and angry white bears, and continued to climb up along the ridge, climbing higher and higher. Almost to the top of the mountain, his path was different from that of any other creature. In the wind outlet, letting the strong snow wind whistle past on both sides of his body, the wandering mage's staggering and firm steps were about to step into the knee-deep snow, and the magical arcane magic instantly flattened the snow, turning the man's feet into thick and flat hard ground, avoiding the terrible ending of falling off the cliff. The wind and snow could not stop the figure's footsteps, but it still used its violent natural will to oppress the way forward. The position of the ridge was reduced from dozens of meters to a few meters, and there were steep and dangerous ice cliffs on both sides. For ordinary climbers, walking on such a road is tantamount to actively stepping into death. However, the figure who was moving forward never stopped until the suddenly strong cold wind blew off the hood, and the flying snowflakes scraped on the face like countless bone-cutting knives. More than 10 years of searching day by day have not brought any ruthless scars of the years. The purple-blue skin has long been alienated by the magic brought by the runes, turning into immortal will and cold determination. For the owner of the hood, any obstacles are just a driving force to make the determination to move forward more condensed. Facing the snow and wind, the wandering mage carrying a large leather backpack looked at the end of the dangerous road. The higher road to the sky was the last difficult to climb peak of the Eurus Mountains. As long as he climbed over the last dangerous peak, he would be able to see the green plains to the south of the mountains and leave this icy hell where countless people were buried. In order to save time, he chose to take a road that no one could take. I heard that the magic Forbidden Stone of Demacia has the magical effect of disrupting magic and isolating the flow of magic. Perhaps this magical power is related to the world rune. I should go and see. Maybe I can gain something. He covered his hood again. In order to avoid the strong mountain wind tearing the hanging rope of his backpack, the wandering mage directly opened the arcane shield to isolate the strong wind outside the shield, took the first step to climb over another dangerous peak, and slowly moved forward on the 10,000-foot ice cliff. His footsteps will never stop until his tired body falls completely. As soon as the sky was light, thousands of people gathered around each other, passed the inspection of the Black Iron Guards in curiosity and laughter, entered the outer city and the inner city, and came to the four ring-shaped entrances of the Great Building. It took 8 years, and the great building called Arena by the Lord was quickly formed with the participation of the Black Rose Earth Mage. It covers an area of 20,000 square meters, with a circumference of 535 meters, and can accommodate 100,000 spectators at the same time. There are two types of spectator seats. The open-air spectator seats are less than half a meter apart from each other. It is a place for ordinary people to watch the game. The closed spectator seats above are designed for the rich and some nobles who like various extravagant games. In addition to the bed and the low cabinet, the closed room is equipped with a one-sided magic mirror, which can see from the inside out, but can block the jealous eyes of the outside world. Above everyone, the most distinguished and unique high platform seat belongs only to the ruler of the Emerald Territory. It is the best place in the entire arena and the only spectator seat with an independent escape passage. Thanks to, for the 5,000 point reward, and for the 500 point reward. I wanted to say that I was in a good mood today, but after thinking about it, I will have training in the afternoon and tomorrow, so I won't say more. I will add one more chapter for everyone. Chapter 234 Supreme Privilege. What the mage is most proud of is that outside the arena, there are 4 improved crystal protective arrays. As long as the mage inputs enough mana into the core of the 4 arrays, a magic shield covering the sky will isolate the core of the arena from the audience, which will not affect the viewing of the game, and can also give ordinary people in the audience a great sense of security. The first time to enter the arena to watch the game, except for walking a few more steps, there is no additional cost, and there is no entrance fee. Naturally, the people of the Emerald Territory and the guests who come and go are extremely curious about what this big thing that has cost so much money and effort is. It is the natural nature of most human beings to like to get something for free, which is understandable, but it is a bit stupid to get something for free and point fingers at others. Such a freeloader should be hung up and trained with a heart-shaped whip. Of course, this is a later story, with the mentality of if you don't watch it, you'll miss it, including the foreigners besides the people in the territory. The number of people entering the arena reached 12,000 before 7 o'clock. Although the number of people seemed large, they only occupied 1/10 of the audience seats, which made everyone sigh that the Demon Lord was indeed ambitious. At 8:30 in the morning, the number of people present had reached about 30,000. Although it was not too many, it was definitely not a small number. After the Demon Lord and his beautiful woman sat on the high platform, with the sound of a murderous war horn, the steel gate of the arena slowly lowered with the sound of the chain falling, sealing all 4 entrances, making the timid audience in the arena feel nervous, and more people showed excited eyes, staring at the weapon racks on the battlefield and the tall steel gates of the animal pens. The aggressive nature of human beings has penetrated into their bones. Even if there is no fighting, the humans present are already excited just by looking at the bloody and barbaric venue. Of course, there are also women and children who are terrified and regret that they rashly followed their husbands to this terrible place. Soon, the Demon Lord on the high platform waved his hand, and the arena master standing next to the Lord, GC, who killed countless enemies among the Black Guards, stood up with a dignified face and walked to the edge. The dark red military uniform fluttered in the wind, full of majesty. The Black Iron Guards and Shadow Crossbowmen who guard the order are already in place, with swords unsheathed, and bows and crossbows strung. The woman's sharp voice echoed above the arena, making the noisy arena fall into silence in an instant. This is a glorious and great battlefield. Here, everyone is equal. As long as you stand in the arena, no matter you are a noble, a commoner, a murderer, or a warrior who has won countless military honors, everyone has only one identity on the battlefield, that is, the Emerald Leader Gladiator. Gladiators have only one goal, that is to kill or defeat your enemies. Many viewers felt like being pricked by needles when they were scanned by the woman's fiery eyes and subconsciously avoided the woman's sharp eyes. Scanning the tens of thousands of spectators present, GC, who had already become an iron-blooded warrior, gradually raised her voice. The woman raised her right hand, facing the tens of thousands of people who were getting agitated, and remained motionless. Any warrior can come here, speak with your own strength, and win glory and life for yourself with swords and the blood of enemies. Whether you are Dalmatian, Narxan, Ionian, Shurima, or Freljord, remember, it doesn't matter where you are. Whether you are a murderer who has killed lives, a rapist, a robber, or a deserter, remember, it doesn't matter what crime is here. As long as you are willing to give up everything, walk into this hall of glory, and participate in the sacred battle, then you can get the opportunity to change your life. Gladiators who complete 10 consecutive victories can gain complete freedom and glory. If you are a criminal, as long as you can come to the arena, then 10 consecutive victories can exempt you from any crime you have committed outside the Emerald Territory, and you will get the opportunity to join the Emerald Territory. In the Emerald Territory, only the laws of the Emerald Territory can punish you. Other countries and places have no right to interfere. If you are a warrior who fights purely for glory and glory, then 10 consecutive victories can allow you to get a reward of 100,000 Shurima gold coins and the opportunity to become a superior person in the Emerald Territory. If you are a criminal, a gladiator who has won 5 consecutive games can get a chance to join the punishment army to atone for his sins. As long as you can make enough contributions on the battlefield, you can use your achievements to buy yourself freedom. If you come for glory and have never carried sins, then you can use your sword to become famous and use endless victories to make yourself the object of favor for countless girls. After each battle, you can quit at any time. If you have an unsolvable personal grudge with another person, you can also decide who lives and who dies by applying for a fight. When words cannot prove yourself, please pick up your sword. Kill your enemies here. The life and death fight initiated by revenge cannot be refused. As the voice fell, the silent audience roared like a landslide and tsunami, and the crowd fell into absolute madness. The woman's voice completely revealed the meaning of the existence of the arena. Glory, status, money, guilt, and even life. Everything can be earned in the arena through the sword in your hand. As long as you can defeat your enemy, your own strength is everything. This place is absolutely fair, but also absolutely unfair. Most importantly, the arena puts innocent warriors and guilty prisoners on the same level in an unfair way to fight, expressing human desires in a life and death way. Warriors fight for fame, criminals fight for life, and everyone has a desire to fight, making life and death and strength the absolute judge. People off the field can fight without scruples, and people on the field can get the pleasure that is difficult to get in a peaceful life through bloody fights, vent negative emotions, or bet on the gladiators they like. If they are lucky, they can make a small profit. It can be said that the resources are used to the extreme. The arena is originally used to entertain the public. If it can play all other roles, why not do it? The long sword was unsheathed, the sharp blade pointed to the sky, and GC's roar overwhelmed everyone. Everyone, silence. When the audience seats returned to silence again, GC retracted the long sword and shouted loudly, "I declare, the glorious battle begins now." Amid the boiling cheers, Jis returned to her seat behind the Lord, and the steel gate controlled by chains and gears slowly pulled up. 2 strong Freljord men, wearing only simple cloth covering their bodies, walked into the large arena with complicated expressions encouraged by the spears of the Black Iron Guards. The steel gate quickly fell, cutting off the two's escape. The brass speakers connected by brass tubes were distributed in every corner of the arena, and some distorted sounds were heard. Obviously, the brass sound channel pipelines need to be optimized. Oh, they are warriors from Freljord, resolute and powerful. Can you briefly introduce them? The gladiator at exit 1 is Pegris, and the gladiator at exit 2 is Patrick. because it is their first time to fight. More information is still unknown. Who will win this battle of life and death? Let's wait and see. The somewhat annoying sound in the brass trumpet disappeared, but the two frail-jawed captives still did not move, which made the audience present a little dissatisfied. The commentator behind the scenes had to put his mouth close to the trumpet again to ease the dissatisfaction and restlessness in the venue. It seems that our frail-jawed gladiators have not adapted to the environment here. After all, it is the first time. Please give our warriors 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, the life and death of these two people, will definitely have a clear result. Calculating the time, the crossbowmen holding crossbows raise the killing weapons in their hands. If there is no movement within 3 minutes, they will shoot all living things in the venue without hesitation. Hina, who looked a little haggard and had dark circles under her eyes, pulled the man's sleeve and asked in a low voice, "Brother Lester, will you really let go of the criminal who won 10 games in a row?" Lester knew that the Angel sisters and their father had abnormal conditions at the same time last night. He was going to take the sisters to live in a small villa at the foot of the mountain in the northwest of Emerald Territory for a while after the end of today, waiting for the flaming sword that fell from the sky. For Hilla's question, the man at this moment had to put aside his worries, took the black-haired girl's hand, and squeezed it gently. Zina, the criminals who can be released must be valuable criminals who are worth releasing, because such people can play a greater role when they are alive. The enemies of each gladiator are arranged by ourselves. It is very simple to kill a hated person. Just arrange an enemy that he can never defeat. Even when necessary, we can personally step down from the referee's seat and end his life before he goes on stage. So it seems fair here, but it is actually very unfair, because fairness is determined by us. When fairness is in the hands of a few people, it is no longer fair. It is called privilege. Privileges are owned by those in power. In fact, the essence of the law is nothing more than something that those in power use to restrain most ordinary people. For the privileged class, the law has little effect and there are many loopholes to exploit. Pointing to the high platform under his feet, Lester turned his head and looked at Miss Ha, who was hanging her head on the other side. The man gently touched the girl's head, causing the girl to raise her pretty face with a little confusion and look at him in a daze. It is absolutely a lie to say that Lester does not feel sorry for the two Haggard sisters, but it is a pity that he cannot give too much comfort. Sighing, the man turned around. Under his feet were tens of thousands of spectators and two Frill-Jordians who were stretching their muscles. Being able to legally control the life and death of others and making them speechless, willing to obey the result and unable to resist, this is called privilege. Many times, privilege is hidden behind the scenes, and ordinary people can't see it at all. They can only see what we want them to see, just like they can only live in the environment we arrange for them. The law has always served the privileged class. My girls, you should grow up. Including the Emerald Territory, all the rules I have established are just to obtain supreme privileges. In this world, there are always people who need to master the supreme power. In order to avoid being abused by some idiots, it is better to control this sort of power yourself and transform the world into what you like, so that you can live more comfortably. Lester took Miss Ha's hand and retracted his gaze, no longer looking at the gladiators who had already decided their lives. In order to survive, many people even killed their loved ones, not to mention just a companion. The initial hesitation was just to let the other party strike first, so that he could find a safe excuse to kill his companion. The blood groove of the iron sword sprayed dark red blood, and the body fell heavily. Patrick. 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 The bloody performance was over, and the cheers resounded through the sky, giving the winner the empty glory and praise. The body of the dead gradually became cold and lay on the ground. No one cared. The man stood up and pulled two beautiful girls in aristocratic dresses, one purple and one white, to stand up, as if cheering for the winner. Seeing that the Demon Lord also stood up, everyone present stood up at the same time, waving their arms, clapping their hands, shouting wildly, and cheering for the first shocking battle. In the deafening sound, only the two girls themselves knew that at this moment, the man only had eyes for them. The two frail-jawed gladiators who were fighting for their lives with all their strength off the court, did not stay in the man's eyes for more than 2 seconds. Mishap, Hina, you are the pearls of the Emerald Territory, my favorite treasures. Under my protection, the entire Emerald Territory revolves around you, but you must also have the right thoughts and actions. I hope you can become the sword and shield that extend my will, and the guardian of the Order of the Emerald Territory. Even if I'm not here, you can protect this land, and use your own thoughts to play the role of privilege, expel all invaders and despicable people, and make the scum of selfishness and corruption that erode the Emerald Territory disappear. Although exclusive rights mean injustice, as long as the user of the Sword of Power is wise and kind enough, it is the most perfect fairness and justice. Rights themselves do not distinguish between good and bad. It is people and upright hearts that distinguish between good and bad. Just like where we are sitting now, there are more than 30,000 people present who would think that we don't deserve to sit here. Lester asked softly after the two girls absorbed his words. So, Mishap, Hina, I ask you, are you willing to be the guardian of the Emerald Territory, to be my sword and my shield, to exercise your rights and to guard the order here? Although they were in the midst of the hustle and bustle, the two girls felt that they were in a dark corridor at this moment, being pulled by the man they trusted to move forward in an unknown direction. The whisper in their ears violated their long-held beliefs, but after thinking about it, they found that there seemed to be nothing wrong. Absolute justice is not justice, and forgiving sins cannot save fallen souls. It seems that their own ideas have been one-sided from the beginning, so what if they violate them now? Instead of putting their efforts on rigid dogmas and beliefs, it is better to use actions to protect the most important things for themselves. Recalling the etiquette of ancient ministers' loyalty to the emperor taught by teacher Cui Silly, the two girls looked at each other, knelt down at the same time, and saluted. On the arena, Patrick looked at his companion who was pierced through the chest by his sword in a trance. In the blessing eyes of his companion, he knelt on the ground blankly and lowered his depressed face in front of the dagger held in the air by his companion. The moment Pegris deflected the sword, he understood that he was a complete loser and a despicable villain. Lester, who had gained the loyalty of the angel, did not realize that it was easy to misjudge people's hearts when he was high up. In one chapter, 4,300 words are presented first. The bad poppy is offline, and the explosive poppy is rising. Everyone, please give me your votes and rewards. Chapter 235 God and Man. The highest point of the Runeland connected to the peak of the giant god peak, above the heaven connected to the universe. A divine sword wrapped in divine power streaked across the starry sky and flew straight to the residence of the Protoss. With the return of Pantheon, who destroyed the Void Planet, the incomplete power of the Justice Protoss was complete again, which made the Justice Protoss even happier, because what the servant Misira brought to him was not only the power that was originally lent, but the power that was increased through pure faith was much stronger than at the beginning. As long as the divine power was used to strip away the human part of the power, this part of the power born from the servant would completely belong to the giant god himself. Reluctantly withdrawing his attention from the two new bodies he had prepared, the will of the Justice Protoss began to erase the tenacious belief that belonged to Misira and the power. The woman's 16 years of dedication, 16 years of missing her family, 16 years of day and night, in less than 1,000th of a second, were understood, copied, and completely erased by the Justice Protoss. The reason for copying was only because Misira's memories were still useful to the Justice Protoss. After the sword began to circle, all traces of Misira had completely disappeared from the world. The funny thing was that the one who knew Misira best was the culprit who put the woman to death, a spirit of a constellation composed of constellations and beliefs. The righteous star spirit did not even let go of the woman's most precious memories, turned over the most important places of others, and then burned them all, leaving everything belonging to humanity in ashes. Only things belonging to God can be preserved, which is the arrogance of the star spirit. The adaptability of the new body needs to grow slowly, which takes time. The star spirit's divine language, which mortals cannot understand, echoed in the quiet heaven in the form of spiritual sound waves, and the stars echoed each other in the twinkling. Misira's mortal will needs to be reinfused and modified in preparation for the creation of a new vessel. The Protoss artifact Starfire Runeblade hovered in the air. While the righteous Protoss was infusing divine power into the Starfire Runa blade, it was also reforging the personal will left by her servant Mysera. The woman's expectation for a shattered dream in her dying moments was completely eliminated by the Protoss, as if it had never happened. The woman's hatred for the stars was changed into supreme reverence. Mysera's confession of neglecting her husband and daughter was changed into sadness and hatred for her husband's abandonment of her. The endless and despicable war in the heavens for the attributes of the constellations and philosophical morality was changed into a glorious and righteous astral holy war. The divine names obtained by the two immature vessels after inheriting their own astral divine power were further modified, and the expectation of returning to the heavens to participate in the holy war was turned into the most real and touching mother's wish. Such emotions in the divine name that was different from the original mortal name would undoubtedly become the beginning of a complete break between father and daughter. When the seeds of divinity took root and sprouted in the bodies of the two girls, and there was a suitable opportunity, the new servant who wiped out his father with his own hands would also completely kill his own humanity, become his own most perfect vessel, and personally send himself to the heavens. The chosen vessel would pursue the direction of the mother in the mother's last wish, throw itself into the great celestial war, complete the tempering in the war, and further become a perfect astral vessel, waiting to complete the last step of possession. For the Justice Star Spirit who knew Mysera well, fabricating such memories and last wishes was as easy as eating and drinking. He had no doubt that under the washing of divinity and the will of the mother, the humanity of the vessel would soon disappear, and he would eventually become the most perfect embodiment of justice, and become the new Justice Star Spirit. At that time, mortals were not mortals, and the Justice Star Spirit was the god of justice. The fate is decided, and the rune blade is born. After completing all the work, the Starfire rune blade carrying Mysera's expectation fell from the heavens and fell to the predetermined position according to the mark of the star track. Everything was going according to the plan of the Justice Star Spirit, but what he didn't know was that the location where the Starfire rune blade landed was not in Demacia, which was blessed by the forbidden magic stone. There was the Emerald Territory, where a wolf from another world lived. When the sun was shining, 8 battles had been held in the arena, and 8 winners had been decided. The 9th battle was currently underway. Unlike the previous 8, the 9th battle was a beast fight. The struggle between humans and beasts has never ceased since ancient times. Using the most primitive fighting method to stage a life and death fight can effectively enhance bloodiness. The audience who have adapted to the passionate atmosphere of the arena became more and more excited. After many women and children who could not adapt to the brutal environment left during the break, the number of people increased by several thousand. Due to inconsiderate on the audience who did not bring dry food did not even have time to eat, and devoted themselves to the bloody and violent fight. After swearing allegiance, they watched for another morning. After eating a little, Hina and Mishap, who were not in good spirits, went into the hut behind the platform and fell asleep. Lester only comforted the two girls, and did not stop them. Lord Lester, powerful beasts are not easy to capture. Perhaps we should think of more appropriate way. After the two new favorites left, the resentful GC came late, sat on the man, opened the magic circle on the platform that could isolate detection, and erected a mechanical wall to prevent people who had the power to see through the magic circle from taking advantage. Under the effect of the camouflage magic circle, if someone looked up, they would only see 2 Emerald Territory rulers sitting upright on their seats. This was a rare opportunity, and she had to get intimate with the man. Nowadays, beast fighting is a novel form of entertainment. In order to relieve the audience's visual fatigue, a dozen beasts are enough. In the future, the Emerald Territory can capture and breed beasts, so that it can provide a steady supply of high-quality beasts. Correspondingly, more stringent and reasonable beast fighting rules will be formulated. As the owner of the arena, you have to work hard yourself. What results you can achieve depends entirely on you. Looking at the frail-jawed barbarian who was fighting and entangled with 3 hungry wolves with his bare hands, Lester took off his mask, kissed the woman lightly, scratched the woman's nose, and looked at the woman's face that was almost 40 years old, and the man sighed secretly. Time is unforgiving. Seeing Margaret, GC and others getting older, he still can't find a suitable solution and can't help but feel a little anxious. It just so happens That time is tight recently, and there are a lot of various affairs. After the opening ceremony of the arena, he will take the Angel Sisters to the villa area to live for a while. There is no time to go far to find a way to prolong life. This is the truth about the Angel Sisters killing their father and turning against each other after picking up the Starfire rune. I just want to ask, who can write the background designed by Riot so carefully? Riot should take the nest away, give me money every day, and let me help them stay up late to improve the shitty background. Especially the Clown King Vigo. Chapter 236 Rune Alienation. Off the field, the unarmed frail-jawed man was surrounded by 3 wolves that were surrounding him. The man was serious as he dealt with the 3 beasts, constantly adjusting his position. Soon the stalemate was broken, and the wolves took the lead in attacking. One wolf made a feint and pounced, and after attracting the barbarian's attention, the other 2 looked for the right time to attack, constantly launching real and fake harassment. In 3 directions, the wolves always attacked the man's weaknesses that he could not take care of, making the barbarian a little flustered, and the only wrapping on his limbs that could be used for defense began to break, which forced the barbarian to consider that he had to kill one of them to alleviate the situation of inevitable death. Roar, ah. Awo, he kicked away the wolf that was attacking him from the right and back. He used his left arm to block the attacker that was attacking him from the left and back. He grabbed the neck of the cunning beast that was feinting from the front with his right hand. Facing the wolf's sharp teeth, he lifted the wolf's body high and threw it to the ground fiercely, making the wolf's eyes dazzle. Die. He kicked the wolf in the throat with his right foot, kicking the wolf far away before it could get up. Seeing the wolf spitting blood foam while rolling, the man knew that the beast with a broken throat would not survive, so he began to concentrate on dealing with the enemy who had already torn a crack in his left arm. He wanted to break the wolf's teeth and twist off the wolf's head as soon as possible. At this moment, a shining light that pierced the sky fell from the sky, making a terrible scream, making everyone in the arena look up subconsciously. The falling object, which looked like a meteorite from outer space, came into view. The arena was silent for about a second, and then it was boiling in the next moment. Panic spread everywhere. With a whimper, the wolf let go of the barbarian's injured left arm without waiting for the barbarian to fight back. It tucked its tail between its legs and shrank to the edge of the arena with another companion. The barbarian stared blankly at the object falling from the sky. He could not think of resisting at all. He subconsciously froze in place and even forgot to run away. Where could he run to? It's a meteorite. It's flying towards us. AHH. Run for your life. It must be a punishment from the gods. Emerald territory is a sinful place. The crossbow arrow shut the mouth of the unlucky man who panicked and spoke without thinking. The blood and killing also reminded everyone of the power and tyranny of Emerald territory. Even so, fear still echoed in everyone's heart. The sharp-eyed spectators in the audience screamed and shouted. Faced with a falling meteor that looked like a natural disaster and divine punishment, fear spread among the crowd. Many people stood up and prepared to flee. Fortunately, the Black Iron Guards faithfully performed their duties and stopped the unrest from continuing to spread with calm words and hard weapons, so that the audience sat in their seats honestly. However, facing such a powerful natural disaster, even the veterans who had experienced hundreds of battles could not help but cast their worried eyes on the existence on the high platform. Only that person remained calm. In this way, amid the anxiety of tens of thousands of people, the meteorite approached rapidly. As GC panted, Lester, who pointed his sword at the sky, looked colder, as if he had crossed the sky and saw the ruthless eyes. God never considers the life and death of mortals. Under the starry sky, we are all ants. So the man quickly pulled up his pants and sheathed his sword. The ripples of magic disappeared silently. Lester, who put on his mask again, stared grimly at the stream of lights and fireworks that fell from the sky like an intercontinental missile. When he came to the edge, the man raised his right hand and spoke in a serious voice. Everyone is silent. All mages, all input mana into the magic circle, maintain the protective shield, and output mana with all your strength. The Black Iron Guards cooperate. The rest of you evacuate quickly and orderly. Those who push and crowd will be killed without mercy. Yes. After receiving the clear instructions from the Lord, everyone present felt relieved and stood up in accordance with their duties. Those who evacuated, and the mages who were close to the magic circle quickly approached the magic circle and input their mana into the magic circle with all their strength. In a few seconds, the barbarian and the two wolves with their tails between their legs found themselves protected in the arena by the dark blue magic shield. However, the barbarian looked at the solid shield that gave him a sense of security, which made him even more uneasy. The falling objects far away in the sky were getting bigger and smaller. They seemed to be moving very slowly, but their speed was incredibly fast. Jesse, go get Miss Valentina and come to me. Understood. Concentrating on the meteor sword, a giant rune array with a diameter of 5 meters emerged from Lester's hand. The rapidly rotating rune array was quickly charged by the gushing magic power. Within 3 seconds, 3 cone-shaped ice spikes with a length of 10 meters and a diameter of 3 meters quickly materialized. In the violent explosion, they shot straight at the objects falling from the sky like surface-to-air missiles. Pa. 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 3 sounds of ice crystals breaking rang out, accompanied by the shock wave of kinetic energy collision and magic element explosion. The giant ice cone only slightly deviated from the falling trajectory of the meteor sword. Mixed with the anger of the righteous star spirit towards the man, the starfire rune blade continued to fly to the high platform without slowing down. In just a few seconds, Jesse had brought the 2 still confused girls to the man's side. Stand behind me. Less than a kilometer away from falling to the ground, there was no time to say anything more. Lester began to call on Alina's power, constantly improving his output rate of magic. A solid angle protective ice wall quickly took shape. 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers. With the help of the amplification array, the active violent ice wall was like a monster that continued to proliferate and expand. Within a few seconds, hundreds of layers of more than 10 square meters of tilted ice walls were formed, which stunned the 3 women behind Lester. They had never thought that magic could be so violent. In Lester's calculations, the plane of the ice wall and the landing point and sword body of the meteor sword just formed a minimum acute angle of less than 15 degrees, which just removed most of the impact force, just like the tank armor defending against tungsten core armor piercing projectiles, so that the falling meteor sword was forcibly deflected by the ice wall and fell towards the protective shield in the center of the arena. He had already done his best. The sword of the meteorite burning with blazing flame smashed down on his head, breaking through the outermost defensive ice wall without any hindrance like a hot knife cutting butter. Although they were very scared of the scene before their eyes, the sisters Jesse and Miss Ha did not leave the man's side, choosing to trust him completely. It's over. The Lord will be punished by God and executed. Some people who had not yet escaped looked back and saw the shocking scene. Seeing that the 100-layer ice wall had been broken in half, the man shouted desperately, "Come and save the Lord." He wanted to go up and do something, but he was held tightly by the roaring black iron guards and staggered to the end of the crowd. The Lord can escape. The reason he chose to resist was to let you leave safely. What can you do if you go up there, you bastard? Don't live up to the Lord's kindness. Get out of here. Many people turned around in grief, wiped their tears and left quickly, unwilling to see the scene of the Lord's death. For Lester himself, it was indeed a critical moment of life and death. I don't know if there was any icing. This sword from the gift of the righteous star spirit seemed to be completely different from the background of the angel sister's story. The flame power attached to the sword body was enough to melt everything. In addition, the starfire rune blade was originally a divine weapon. It was indeed a bit presumptuous to rely solely on the powerful natural rune magic to block the sword, but at this moment, there was no chance to retreat. If he left, the high platform, along with Jesse and the angel sisters, would probably die at the same time under the tyrannical sword. The powerful divine power shockwave would not care whether you were the intended owner or not. Miss Valentina, who had not yet obtained the demigod body, would definitely not be able to resist such an attack. He had to prepare for the worst. 5 layers, 4 layers, 3 layers, 2 layers. Seeing that the starfire rune blade was about to reach the last line of defense, Lester received the information from Alina in his heart, and there was a new way to use power, life, energy, absorption, fusion, talent. The man was startled. Then without hesitation, he dispersed the rune power used to charge magic power to various parts of his body according to the information given by Alina, and fused with the active ice element. In less than a second, the man's hair took on a beautiful silver white color like snow, and the rune power and the body's affinity for ice element intertwined, forming mysterious light silver lines on the surface of the skin. After the Starfire rune blade hit the ice wall for the last time, the ice wall, which had undergone a qualitative change and fused with the rune power, suddenly expanded, causing the sword, which had already deviated from its trajectory, to tilt its head and fly towards the magic shield in the center of the arena. The magic shield, that had been storing energy for a long time, became fragmented under the impact of the Starfire rune blade. It only resisted for 2 seconds before the energy depleted shield formation was broken. The mage who input magic power was slightly backfired and fell backwards to the ground. The magic sword stabbed straight into the arena, causing the man and 2 wolves who were hugging each other closely with their eyes wide open to raise their anus again, holding back the testicles and kidney water that were about to leak out. The man and 2 wolves hid in the outermost ring area in fear, watching the magic weapon blade that smashed a big hole in the ground, watching the cracks caused by the shockwave stop in front of their toes, with an unbelievable look. Alive, alive. Woo woo. Hearing the man's trembling voice, the 2 evil wolves huddled in their chest hair whimpered and nodded, staring at the terrible thing like a punishment from heaven with pitiful eyes, and there was no way they would choose to devour people. After getting the approval of his 2 surviving companions, the frail-jawed man almost cried when he looked down at the 2 beasts that were flirting with him at the moment, but had almost bitten him to death just now. He was just dealing with a wolf, but how could such a ghost thing come over? And what the hell are you 2? You're not going to get down, right? 2 big brothers, how about you leave my hair first? AWW. He thought the 2 wolves would be reasonable and get off his chest hair, but he didn't expect the wolves to get closer, and one even licked it with its tongue, as if the black chest hair could bring a sense of security. He didn't dare to make a move on the wolf that was only a dozen centimeters away from his neck. The barbarian, who wanted to cry but had no tears, looked for help from others. Unfortunately, after a disaster, no one cared about him. Then, what is that? Thanks to Zuo for the 10,000 points reward, and thanks to everyone for the monthly ticket support. I will add one more chapter. This chapter is 3k2. I won't say how long it is. Here is a question. Apart from the protagonist, who in the article is still a rune mutant as of now, there are 2 answers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237, God-Given Sword. It seems to be a sword? Many of the Black Iron Guards and magicians who did not leave were curious and impulsive about the divine weapon inserted in the center of the venue. The hilt of the sword made of star iron emitted holy light in the sun, and the beautiful blade like crystal glass emitted colorful blue light. The divine sword standing upright on the ground warned the humans present with every extraordinary thing that this was not an item that ordinary people could own. But even with such cognition, there were still greedy mages who cast wind-based lightness on themselves and jumped into the pit of the arena. Although the Lord did not issue an order, there were still a few loyal crossbowmen who pulled the trigger to protect the Lord's property. With a swoosh, several crossbow arrows were blocked by the suddenly rising mana shield. The possessed mage was getting closer and closer to the God-given artifact, and he didn't care about retaliating against the crossbowmen who attacked him. For him, at this moment, it seemed that he had become the darling of the world, and getting his own artifact was the most important thing. After noting the appearance of the loyal crossbowman, and shaking his head at the other soldiers who were looking for their opinions, the silver-haired Lester, who was still in the state of rune alienation, hugged the 3 trembling women, and looked coldly at the mage who carefully reached out his hand to the Starfire rune blade, with a sneer on his lips. The gift given by the righteous star spirit to the angel sisters is not something that others can touch. Didn't you see that the sword has not been split yet? Mine, mine, you are mine. For you, I can give up magic and concentrate on practicing swordsmanship. As if he knew that his behavior was a bit too reckless, the mage retracted his hand, knelt on the ground, kowtowed to the sword several times, and made a prayer gesture, greeting all the gods he could think of. After a long time, he stretched out his right hand again and grasped the hilt of the sword. "You didn't attack me. You must have recognized me, right? God gave you to me. You can't hurt me. You are mine." The mage excitedly grasped the hilt of the sword and wanted to pull it up, but the next second after his palm touched the hilt, the star spirit fire purified the greedy people from the inside out, burning the mage to ashes and making other guys who were eager to try completely give up the idea of taking the treasure. Until this moment, Lester's majestic voice finally sounded. "No one is allowed to approach the sword. Shadow crossbowmen and black iron guards block the arena. Anyone who approaches without permission will be killed. GC, you are responsible for publicity. Just say that in a month, the arena will hold a ceremony to choose the master of the sword so that the audience and foreigners can come and see. The gift of God is much more interesting than fighting. Understood?" Nodding with satisfaction, Lester was about to pull the two girls who were concentrating on the sword away from the high platform, but he heard the cry of the frail-jawed people. "My lord. What should I do?" After taking a closer look at the two wolves, and one person hugging each other, which was particularly funny, Lester smiled rarely, and spoke in frail-jawed. "Since you survived, it counts as a victory for you. However, you did not completely kill the enemy, but instead influenced the enemy, so you must be responsible for your friend. Soldier, lock up the frail-jawed man and the two wolves together, and let them eat and live together." "Yes." The barbarian with a deathly pale face was held by the black guards wearing heavy armor. The soldiers forcibly pulled the two wolves down from the barbarian's thick chest hair and locked them in a cage. With the help of the soldiers, the man and the two wolves successfully lived together, ready to spend the day and night together. After finishing everything, Lester used a little strength to hold the two sisters who wanted to touch the sword tightly and walk towards the direction of the passage. "Lester, I heard the sword calling. Mishap, I know, but it's not time yet. Believe me, let's go. The sword belongs to you too. No one can take it away, but before you draw the sword, I need to make some preparations for you." Unlike her sister, who easily gave up the temptation, Mishap was still reluctant to leave even after hearing the man's words. Frowning, the man didn't say much and still pulled the two girls away quickly. He never thought that the Protoss was a good thing, never thought so. But to snatch people from the hands of the Justice Protoss, some preparations are still needed. 1 month is enough. Even the most powerful people in Demacia have an extraordinary interest in the unparalleled magic weapon that appeared in the Emerald Territory arena. There are many magical items circulating in the Valoran continent, but if there is an artifact that falls from the sky and deliberately lands in the territory of a certain force, it is unheard of. In the White Forbidden Magic Stone meeting hall, holding his favorite only son Gavinster, Gavin Dark discussed with Orin and invited Kraken, the first swordsman of Demacia, who has become the most outstanding new generation of the Hilda family and the strongest warrior of Demacia. Before Kraken came, Gavin Dark teased Gavinster's little nose and spoke to Orin, who had entered middle age. "Why haven't I seen the yodel who likes to follow you recently?" Orin rolled his eyes and drank a sip of the cup. His big beard was pouting, like a lost father who lost his daughter. "She said something happened in her hometown, and she needs to go back. She should be back soon." Can you believe what Yodel said? Putting Gavinster, the rebellious son who pinched his nose, on the ground, letting the naughty child stumble and fall. The cold old father Gavin Dark spoke earnestly to comfort him. "My old friend, you really should pass on your excellent bloodline. I'm really afraid that you will really die alone, which will definitely be a devastating bad news and loss for Demacia. To be honest, Orin, that Yodel Bocce will forget you sooner or later. In Demacia, a Yodel cannot inherit your will. When you entrust your wishes to a Yodel, the Yodel will definitely forget them completely and make a mess of things. Orin, the Yodel have demonstrated the characteristics of these little creatures with countless frivolity and unreliability. You can't put anything important in their hands. Nothing can be done in their hands. Even though Bocce is a Yodel accepted by Demacia. Her name is Poppy, Javan. In the end, you still didn't remember her name." Sighing, Orin rubbed his cheeks, his voice low. You know, I don't want Poppy to bear anything. It's too heavy to let a happy elf bear the responsibility of a country. It's just, Javan, I just can't accept another woman. I still can't forget her. Every time I close my eyes, I can see her sad face, and I can't do it, to like someone else. Even Jarvandark was helpless about the knot in his old friend's heart. He couldn't feed his old friend aphrodisiacs and force a woman to have a child with his old friend. The result would definitely be heavier than Orin not having a child. If Orin happened to meet his yodel daughter, it would be even worse. Demacia would face division. The atmosphere was a bit dull until a guard reported that the swordsman Captain Kraken asked for a meeting. With a thump, the rebellious son Jarvanster fell on his back again, crying loudly. Thanks to the book friend for the 10,000 coin reward, and one more update. The goal of 10,000 words has been achieved. Chapter 238 Jarvan's concerns. Let him in. The heavy silver greaves stepped on the hard white marble bricks, making an extremely oppressive sound. From far away, a steel swordsman who took off his silver helmet walked into the hall, holding the hilt of the sword, and kneeling on one knee. Looking at the imposing Demacia's strongest warrior in front of him, even the somewhat depressed Orin couldn't help but cheer up a little and smile a little more. The man who deliberately grew a beard looked very mature and steady. Kraken said in a deep voice, Lord Javan, is General Orin in good health? Get up, there are no outsiders now, just be natural. Yes. Standing up, Kraken glanced at Jarvanster who was crying on the ground from time to time, and didn't understand why his old father didn't choose to help his good son up. I wonder what Uncle Javan wants me to do this time. Jarvandark was choosing his words, as if he didn't hear his son crying. It wasn't until Hilris hurried over that she slapped her husband on the back of his head after Orin turned his head away, that she picked up her son and coaxed him to the back. This scene made Kraken a little embarrassed. Aunt Hilris didn't seem simple. Well, Crest is already 7 years old this year, right? Although it was a solemn tone, that was no different from the past. Kraken always felt that Uncle Javan's voice was not as majestic as before. Yes, Crest is currently learning swordsmanship with his father, and learning cultural knowledge with Nalia. Not bad, he is an excellent child. When he grows up, you can let Crest and Jarvandark have more contact. Seeing that his old friend Orin lowered his head again, missing the yodel man, Jarvandark could only change the subject and get straight to business. You have also heard about the sword that appeared in the Emerald Territory of Narxus 3 days ago, right? What do you think? As expected, Kraken nodded, and his expression became serious. It is said that it is a flaming sword that can burn the soul of anyone who touches it. The Emerald Territory's Lord Lester first issued an order to block the arena and forbid anyone to touch it. He then deliberately spread the news. I think he may have found a way to wield the sword and wants to demonstrate the Emerald Territory's military power through the sword's owner. That's why he set the time to a month later. He wants more forces to witness the scene of the Emerald Territory controlling the sword. Lester is a man with big plans. That's right, Lord Lester has never been a simple person. I think my old friend has seen this 10 years ago. Whether in politics or military, the Emerald Territories, Lord of the Demon Face, has outstanding achievements and is by no means an ordinary person. Knowing that Jarvandark was talking about the meeting between Orin and Absol, Kraken did not interrupt. I asked you to come here because I want you to go to the Emerald Territory with Orin, participate in the Emerald Territory Swordmaster selection ceremony, and bring back as much important information about the Emerald Territory as possible. Pointing to the large map hanging on the wall, Jarvandark said in a deep voice, our spies have never had the opportunity to enter the inner city before. The opening of the inner city's arena this time is a rare opportunity. Many forces will enter the Emerald Territory. This is a good opportunity. You will participate in the ceremony as a distinguished guest representing Demacia. Understanding the information about the sword is secondary. The military strength and city defense layout of the Emerald Territory are the top priority. The Emerald Territory and Narxus are too aggressive. In order to protect the peace of Demacia, we need more information about the enemy and try to make arrangements in advance. The most important thing is that we cannot let the Narxans know our intentions. In the midst of all the good and the bad, everything must be done in secret. After thinking for a while, Kraken nodded. I understand, Uncle Javan. Very good. I believe you won't let me down. With a gratified smile, Javan Dark couldn't help but talk about family matters after finishing the business. Kraken, you refuse the search by the magic interdictors. So, Crest has a talent for magic, right? Will Nalia let Crest become a mage? Kraken's expression tightened, and he didn't know what Javan Dark meant by this, but no matter what, he shouldn't put his only son in solitary confinement. In this case, it's better to tell the truth. Yes, Crest has a talent for magic, but Nalia has no intention of letting Crest become a mage. She just wants him to be an ordinary Demacia and spend his life. Is that so? Okay, Kraken, the Demacia delegation will set off tomorrow. You go back and prepare. Understood, Lord Javan. General Oren, I'll take my leave. After Kraken left, Oren looked at Javan Dark, who was thoughtful, thought about it, and advised. I don't object to you doing this, but now is not a good time. I know, I'm just preparing a plan. Maybe I won't see the day it is established until I die. This top secret plan will only be opened when necessary. As the cornerstone of peace and stability in Demacia, there will be a day in the future when things change, but it is definitely not now. That's good. Okay, I'm leaving. The man who holds the highest power in Demacia watched his old friend leave, sighed deeply, and finally gave up the unreliable idea of assassinating the Yodel Boki. I can't help it, old friend. Let's take it one step at a time. In the conference hall of the Immortal Bastion, the Noxan Supreme Command was holding a meeting. A hurried messenger knocked on the door and put a confidential letter from another place in front of the Noxan Warband leader. The Emerald Lord Skydropping Sword will hold a Swordmaster selection ceremony in the arena next month. There is such a thing. Isn't this more fun than having 3 wives? The man who couldn't suppress his excitement slapped the table and stood up with a laugh. As the immortal fortress with the closest connection to the Emerald Territory, Nadaz drooled with envy after learning that the Emerald Territory had obtained the Divine Sword. He did not act like a barbarian boss at all. Stender rolled his eyes at Nadaz, who occasionally exploded his nature. He was somewhat used to it. From a distance, he looked very majestic, but up close, he was just a smart fool. Strictly speaking, there were not many reliable people in this room. Fighting the war was all about passion and do. Now thinking back, Stender himself did not know how such a group of hanged people, under the guidance of the Pale Witch, were forcibly integrated together to defeat the tyrant Mordekaiser and successfully occupy the Immortal Fortress. It should be a stroke of luck. So now the question is, who wants to go to the Emerald Territory to participate in the Divine Swordmaster selection ceremony? As soon as Stender's voice fell, countless responses came one after another. I'll go. Me too. I, Dirksiu, am the chosen one of God. I must meet the Lord of the Sword of the Emerald Territory to see if he is a hero and is qualified to obtain the sword. Waving his hands, Dirksiu kicked his legs while struggling and was dragged out by the serious guards. Stender, with a dark face, looked at the conference room that had suddenly become chaotic and was a little speechless. If this continues, I'm afraid that even the discussion of how to deal with the Claw of Winter and the Howling Wind will be forgotten. What's the point of holding a meeting? It's better to go home and play with Nadaz. I'll go. The door of the conference room was pushed open, and the female mage who had been missing for more than 2 years came into the suddenly quiet conference room with a smile, which surprised everyone. This woman came and went without a trace. How could she be like a ghost? I think it's feasible, but Ms. Rose alone can't express our sincerity. Otherwise, I'll go too. What do you think, Lord Nadaz? Stender breathed a sigh of relief and spoke. That's feasible. I'll have to trouble Ms. Rose and Lord Stender to go there. The woman smiled. It's not that I'm bothering you. I've just been away for too long and want to go home. Guess what the names of Bobby's father and mother are? Chapter 239 How Humans Compete with Protoss for Women. The night wind on the Nokmachi Plain is always accompanied by the melodious chirping of insects and birds. The stream softens under the diffuse starry sky of the new North Pole, taking away the irritability and depression of the heat and noise. Many visitors are intoxicated in the night of the Emerald Territory. Since then, as a stranger in a foreign land, they have stayed in the soft green emerald and cannot extricate themselves. However, no matter how gentle the embrace is, it is difficult to comfort the broken heart. A man's pain will only bloom quietly when it is silent. Kiram hugged his legs blankly and sat quietly beside the beautiful Milky Way. The stream flowed, as crisp and pleasant as a silver bell. The woman beside him had left quietly. After losing the last company, the man felt more lonely. Kiram deliberately went to the arena to see the sword that fell from the sky. How could he not recognize that it was the sword of his wife Missira, who witnessed his wife being chosen by the gods to become a winged god? The whereabouts of his wife is still unknown, but his wife's sword has found him and his daughter. The man dare not imagine the cause and effect contained in this. Missila, since you have chosen to abandon me, why did you come to me and disturb my daughter and my life? The moonlight gently spread on his face, healing the earth that had been burned by the sun for a day. The man was at a loss and looked for answers in the sparkling light, but found nothing except the cold dark light. Even his daughter was taken to the Lord's bed. After Cuisili left, the man at this moment felt completely alone. In loneliness and helplessness, the man lowered his head. Miss Hilla. It's called bedtime, but in fact, for the Lord, it's just a rehearsal in advance, teaching some necessary knowledge, and letting the angel sisters get familiar with close contact with him. In order to grow a good baby in his own farmland in the Emerald Territory, Lester did everything he could, over-irrigating the farmland, applying various advanced fertilizers, plowing 3 times a day and night, even old men pulling plows, handstand fertilization, bulls pulling carts, Armstrong carousel, and roller crows flying on airplanes. He tried all kinds of methods. The crazy man who was pushed to the extreme even applied magic and rune power to the seeds of life, so that the fields had a completely different fertilization experience under safe conditions. The man also accumulated a lot of useless farming experience for this. Even so, nothing could be grown in the fertile fields. It was a wasteland, so that the great demon face lord still has no suitable heir to this day. If it weren't for the fact that he had not yet completely transcended the vulgar and bound realm of thought of mortals, Lester even wanted to try with Za, who had not yet transformed into a human form, whether he could give birth to eggs, so that eggs could become the heir of the Emerald Territory and completely shut up those idiots who were worried that he would die. Since mortals can't do it, Lester will naturally consider that it is because Alina's overly powerful rune power has killed his possibility of creating and nurturing life, so the man set his sights on the angel sisters with demigod bodies. If it is a spouse with the same power level, maybe he can get a minimum heir. The man thought so, and naturally he would not take the pure girl who is still immortal as his own when he is about to retire. As long as he ensures that the girl touches the sword with a pure body and obtains the power of the star spirit, then he can try to give birth to a little angel at will. How can the duck at the mouth fly away? With such considerations, what happened in the Lord's mansion was not as decadent and corrupt as Gulan's father imagined, but unusually pure. Speaking of it, the man just used the considerate shadow assistant Evelyn to give the 2 sisters a few lessons in advance, so that the 2 girls could understand in advance what they would lose after becoming a god without desires, and let the girls let go of all their mental and physical defenses against the men they trusted. In general, it is to keep the angel sisters from irreversible deformation and shape them into the shape you want. A man who knows this well will naturally not let himself be restrained by any false benevolence and righteousness. Only by deepening the human imprint of the 2 sisters with more intimate behavior can he better resist the erosion of divinity from the Protoss. This is a war between man and god, and the battlefield is the body and spirit of Kael and Morgana. Knowing what kind of virtues the Protoss are, men will never allow the righteous Protoss to take away the treasures and weapons they have cultivated for more than 10 years, and victory cannot be won by morality, and it doesn't matter if it is despicable, but it is enough to do whatever it takes to achieve the goal. Therefore, this month's time is to let all the forces in Runeland understand that the Emerald Territory will have 2 powerful guardian angels, and to let the 2 girls understand their responsibilities as the guardians of the Emerald Territory and the women of the Lord. As for what to do specifically, out of fear of Riz, the man naturally opened the magic circle of isolation detection, so that those who wanted to spy with ill intentions could only sigh in despair, and pressed F11 for the Dark Priest who opened the black curtain. Unfortunately, some things are destined to be kicked away. A month passed quickly, and the Swordmaster selection ceremony in Emerald Territory was about to be held. It was just dawn. In a large manor, built in the woods of the outer city for entertaining distinguished guests. After doing 500 push-ups at once, the shirtless Kraken got up from the ground with sweat all over his head, retracted his gaze from the quiet and beautiful path, and wiped his sweat with the towel around his neck. Except for the remote location, this manor was impeccable. It had everything from catering to accommodation. The considerate Lord of Emerald Territory even prepared lovely nightclub beauties to serve him, making the guests feel at home. Although Kraken would not accept close contact with women other than his wife Neriah, he was still satisfied and admired the one-stop service of Emerald Territory. In his opinion, this was the way of hospitality that Demacia should learn, instead of arranging a dry White House to send greasy milk bread every day, and then stupidly saying Demacia's justice cannot allow darkness to grow. As the envoys of Demacia, Kraken and Doran and others naturally have a unique status. It is expected that they are placed in the manor to live. However, it seems that there are not only envoys from Demacia in the manor. In this VIP manor, there are also envoys from the Immortal Bastion, envoys from a major warlord in Shurima, sea beast priests of the Beru people, and even 2 yodels. Kraken couldn't help but feel a little funny when he thought that he would become a VIP with the yodels. There is probably no other lord in the world who treats those short people as guests of honor. The preferences of the Demon Lord Lester are really unique. Hearing the footsteps behind him, Kraken didn't need to look back to know that an Arxen who likes to test others is coming. What's the name of this little mustache? General Oren mentioned it casually yesterday. It happened that he was still drunk. The rare opportunity to relax must not be missed, but he couldn't remember the name clearly. Mr. Kraken, you are exercising again. You look so energetic. Are all the people in Demacia as healthy and energetic as you? Stender, who was hugging the beauty in the nightclub, was wearing pajamas. It was obvious that he had just found some little fun from nature. Naturally, he would not expose the little fun between men. Kraken politely nodded to the woman who was obsessed with his body and chuckled. Master, this is just a habit. It's not about being energetic. It is impossible not to envy Kraken's sturdy and beautiful body like a sculpture, but, damn, what the hell is Master? Did this guy forget my name? With a twitch of his mouth, Stender took his hand from behind the maid and stared at Kraken meaningfully. With such a strongest swordsman, Demacia will be finished sooner or later. Friends who are following the book, please check in or make a few comments. Everyone is supporting the book, and I have no motivation to write. Chapter 240 The Cutie at the Manor Morning Meeting. Too modest, Master Swordsman. For someone who controls the Steel Swordsman Corps, being overly modest is not good. My name is Stender. If possible, maybe we can be friends. Just as the two were testing each other, a short figure walked out of the building. A small grey hat was on top of his round ears. His furry body swayed and looked very cute. The yodel's eyes were fixed on the 3 people. He walked to the 2 people who were talking in 3 or 2 steps and waved his fleshy palm happily, which made the beautiful escort girl in the nightclub have a little heart in her eyes. I really want to hold her in my arms and ravage her. Hi human, how are you? My name is Dudu, and I'm from Bandle City. Most yodels active in Valoran have a long lifespan. For a yodel who can speak Valoran, there is nothing to be curious about. After all, Poppy is a household name in Demacia. Only Garvandark, who never likes yodels, always calls Poppy Pochi or something else strange. Hello, my friend Dudu, my name is Kraken, and I'm from Demacia. Rather than testing useless things with a lecherous old man, Kraken would rather chat with the cute and simple yodel. Have a nice day, Mr. Kraken. Mr. Big Ear, you too. Knowing that this was not the time to talk, Stender hugged the reluctant escort girl and walked away slowly. Unlike the unyielding Demacia swordsman, the Shurima envoy took the woman back to sleep. After all, the envoy of the Shurima warlord was also a person, and he had to meet him, perhaps starting from his preferences for women. After Stender left, Kraken completely let down his guard and looked curiously at the somewhat strange yodel in front of him. Unlike Poppy, the yodel in front of him had abundant hair, like a bear-shaped plush doll. Mr. Kraken, even Tristana, the most diligent in Bandle City, doesn't have such willpower as you. You are amazing. praising the man in front of him. Dudu knew that he had started exercising 2 hours ago. "You're too kind. I'm just used to getting up early. By the way, I remember that besides you, Dudu, there is another Yodel, right? How did you get here?" Rubbing his black nose, Dudu sat on the ground with a quack. Kraken listened to the strange movement in surprise. There was obviously no place to make a quack sound, but it did happen the moment Dudu sat down, making cute sounds through actions. Perhaps this is the magical ability of the Yodel in front of him? This magic does not seem to be evil. "My companion is called Laura. We came from Bandle City and happened to come to the inner city of Emerald Territory. We were controlled by soldiers. After the Lord saw us, he let us go again and let us come here as VIPs to participate in the ceremony. The Lord is really a good man." Rubbing his furry belly, Dudu seemed very happy. "The Lord entertained Laura and me, gave us a lot of delicious food, and asked me to tell other Yodels in Bandle City that Emerald Territory welcomes any visitors from Bandle City. I can see that Lord Lester really likes us, and we are different from other humans. After all, in the eyes of most people, we Yodels are unwelcome. Is that so?" "But, Toot, there is one thing I cannot agree with." Under Toot's puzzled gaze, Kraken also sat on the ground. To the man's regret, his butt did not make a cute quack sound when it landed on the beautiful stone bricks, so he tried twice more. Not to mention quack, it is possible to make a puff sound. But think about it, it's impossible, right? It is too rude for the highest commander of a powerful army to fart in front of a Yodel. Poppy is very popular in Demacia. Many people in Demacia like her, so I think most people are just not very used to those Yodels who are too naughty. There are still many people who like Yodels with mature and stable personalities. Then Poppy is really amazing. A Yodel as persistent as her will not give up the path she has chosen. It seems that Uncle Pochi and Aunt Bomi will have to wait a little longer. Dudu picked his nose and made a kai-chi-chi-kai sound. In the surprised eyes of Kraken, Dudu's furry paws flicked the budger that looked like a light spot, and the budger slowly disappeared like a firefly. "What is this? A magic budger?" Picking a budger is so cute. No wonder the Lord of the Emerald Territory would keep this Yodel. The confused Kraken suddenly recognized the demon face lord, whom he had never met. "Dudu, I can't find my comb. Come and help me find it. I have to meet Lord Lester today." A string of Bandle words came from afar at a very fast speed. Dudu stood up without hesitation and said goodbye to Kraken. "Mr. Kraken, my friend Lala seems to have encountered a little trouble. I need to help her. I wish you a good day." Watching the lovely Yodel Dudu swaying and leaving quickly with the sound of coo coo coo, Kraken felt much better. He rubbed his face and entered the working state before the rising sun. The sun gradually rose higher and the time came to 8 o'clock. A special VIP carriage sent the envoys of the big forces to the entrance of the arena in the south of the inner city. Along the way, there were sentries and sergeants holding sophisticated weapons and solemn expressions. It was impossible to get off the car in the middle of the way. Kraken and Oren could only observe the situation of the inner city and the Emerald Sergeant as much as possible inadvertently, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble. What disappointed them to the most was that there was a short wall around the arena in the inner city. The real situation of the inner city could not be observed from the arena, which made them give up the idea of entering the inner city. To put it nicely, the soldiers of the Black Iron Guard accompanied them all the way to show the guests nobility. To put it bluntly, the soldiers were controlling the personal freedom of the guests to prevent the leakage of confidential information. Although they were disappointed, they admired the security and vigilance of the Emerald Territory. Following the guide, they passed through the inner layer of the arena with a complicated road and came to the VIP area. Oren, Kraken and the other 3 guards were placed in the open air VIP area. There were fresh fruits and vegetables and barbecue on the table, so they didn't have to worry about being hungry because they didn't eat in the morning. In the VIP area located high above, the 5 people from Demacia could already see the sword stuck in the deep pit in the center of the arena. Even Kraken, who was mentally prepared, couldn't help but have the greedy idea of taking it for himself. Any mortal who wants to become stronger will have an extraordinary desire for artifacts. Even the swordsman of the first squad of the Demacia Steel Swordsman Corps is no exception. It's so beautiful, but it's a pity that most people can't see the murderous intent hidden behind the beauty. Auron only took a look at the sword and then retracted his gaze, his tone heavy. Many people will die under that sword. It's better to call it a magic sword than a magic sword. Things from God are never good. What? Someone is urging for more. Chapter 241. The end of intimacy is the calculation of clues. A month seems very long. On the vast Valoran continent, if you don't take a boat, it's just the time it takes to ride a BMW from Emerald Territory to Immortal Bastion day and night. This time is just enough for the Dino Line, where there are boats on the Silver Run and the Black Iron River. As for the visitors from Shurima, after crossing the continental ocean, they can quickly arrive through the trade route of the Silver Mountains, and it won't take long. As for the Father Ionia and the Friljordians in the north, who have not yet been unified, they are not within Lester's consideration at all. It was almost 9 o'clock, and the guests almost filled the audience seats of the arena. Under Lester's deliberate arrangement, even the 2 yodels who came to visit Emerald Territory were given VIP seats. Between order and peace, in the dark battlefield, undercurrents surged. Secret agents and spies appeared one after another, and the Nightblade assassins were scattered in every corner, disguised as any ordinary person who could be disguised, lurking and waiting for the fatal blow. The Black Iron Guards and Shadow Crossbowmen were everywhere, with swords unsheathed and crossbows strung, ready for battle. In more secret places, the Dark Blood Crossbowmen and the Black Guards quietly waited for orders, ready to irrigate their armor with the blood of the enemy at any time. People with vision would naturally not make trouble in such an environment, but there were still many fools who were captured silently, disappeared in the crowd, and lived in the dark dungeon. After Margaret, GC, the Angel Sisters and Rose, including the rulers of the Emerald Territory, entered the scene, Lester was alone in his mansion, and burned the secret letter from the secret base of the Nightblade Killer in the Immortal Fortress into ashes with fire magic. The owner of the letter was the magician Helena. Helena, who was commissioned to investigate, deliberately investigated the person who issued the task of Helia to Demacia. After peeling off the clues of the broken lotus roots, the source was exposed as expected. The initiator of the quest was Rose's capable subordinate, or Thorn Watcher named Carida. Carida was a shadow mage. When Rose had just entered school, she guarded the gate with the hawk-nosed Kenneth, and warned Kenneth not to mess with her woman. Although Rose had many loyal subordinates, such speculation could not prove that Rose or LeBlanc had appointed Helia to go to Demacia, and then calculated that Meredith would definitely follow, and finally die in the hands of the forbidden magician. However, combined with Carida's warning to Kenneth, the phrase "lest you die without a burial place" has exposed the unusual relationship between Carida and Rose. At least Carida knew how high her status was in Rose's heart, so she used death without a burial place to warn Kenneth not to mess with herself, so as not to anger Rose. CC 163 for details. In coincidence, LeBlanc still exposed her feet, exposing her relationship with Rose, and also exposing the relationship between Rose and Carida. The clue was that Rose, or LeBlanc, wanted her to enter the school smoothly without being harassed, and her starting point was actually for herself. I have to say, this is too ironic, and she can even win the Maudan Literature Award. After sorting out the clues, the man sighed deeply. Helena, I owe you another favor. Sitting alone on the sofa, Lester leaned back with his head, looking a little lonely. Although he had not expected that the two of them could maintain pure emotions when their interests were consistent from the beginning, the real result appeared in front of him, and the man still felt very uncomfortable. The man knew that if LeBlanc simply wanted to calculate himself and let him and the Emerald Leader help her slay the dragon, there would be no need for Rose to go through so much trouble. It would be simpler to tell him directly. With sufficient preparation, it would not be difficult for him and the Emerald Leader to slay the dragon. Since LeBlanc chose to conceal the truth about the dragon disaster, then slaying the dragon must have another purpose, and it was a secret purpose that he absolutely could not know and could not let himself have any associations that can only be related to himself. That is to say, LeBlanc never calculated the Emerald Leader, but himself. She wanted to slay the dragon, and her ultimate goal was to deal with me. This was the only reason to hide the truth. Sure enough, from the beginning, the relationship of flesh and blood and interests was an unconstrained bond. Even if it was a half true and half false relationship, even if we had been together for 12 years, it could not change the nature of the enchantress. I was just one of the countless men she had, nothing special. From the beginning to the end, I was just being sentimental. At this moment, the man's gentle heart became much colder and harder. Evelyn's transformed shadow female body sat beside the man and tried to get close to the man carefully, but was suddenly hugged tightly by the man. The powerful force almost made Evelyn, who was not used to the roughness, twisted into a knot. Burying his head deeply in the cold and soft shadow ball, Lester spoke sullenly. "Evelyn, don't move. Let me hug you." After a pause, Evelyn stopped struggling, gently hugged the back of the man's head with her backhand, and her bright golden vertical pupil slowly closed, holding the man in her arms. Who? Forgetting the pleasure of pain and torture, and immersing oneself in pure carnal desires, it seems that there is nothing wrong. At least, one can forget some tyranny. Everything seemed to be ready. Just when someone was wondering why the demon lord had not yet arrived, a soft cry came from the sky. Amid the whistling of wings, a huge, graceful and powerful silver-winged dragon bat wearing bright silver armor descended from the sky and landed accurately next to the sword of the arena. Amid the exclamations of the audience, the Emerald Lord, wearing a strange dark red metal mask, jumped off the dragon bird's neck, patted the dragon bird, and the dragon bird flapped its wings and flew high again. The ability to tame the mutant dragon bird alone made many people present feel that this trip was worthwhile, and they could not help but have many more speculations and fears about the dragon bird troops that Narxus might equip in the future. Orin looked seriously at the Lord of the Emerald Territory, who was ahead of Demacia in taming dragon birds, and carefully noted the appearance of the dragon bird armor plate, his voice a little low. "Our dragon birds have not been fully domesticated yet. It will take at least 10 or 20 years to have a mature system. I didn't expect that the Narxans have come to the forefront and even designed dragon bird armor. Kraken, I often heard you say that above the cliff of Mithril Village, where you were trained since childhood, there has been a beautiful and powerful silver-winged dragon bird hovering in the sky. I wonder which one is stronger, this silver-winged dragon bird or the one you saw? Huh? Why don't you talk?" After waiting for a long time without seeing him recover, Orin frowned and looked behind him. At this moment, the swordsman who used to be calm and upright has disappeared without a trace, and instead there is a big boy with his mouth wide open and a look of disbelief. "Kraken? How is it possible? How could it be? How could it be? Kraken, I think you should think about what the chief swordsman of the Steel Swordsman Corps should look like." After being scolded, Kraken came back to his senses from the shock and unwillingness, and his face looked very ugly. "Sorry, I lost my composure, but I will never forget it in my life. It's her, Uncle Orin. It's her. The dragon bird under the demon lord is the silver-winged dragon bird that I told you about before, which accompanied me for many years in training. But, she is so powerful, beautiful, and holy." After a pause, the proud man lowered his head and stammered. "She who encouraged me for so long, surrendered to another man's crotch. Are you still urging me? I'm really exhausted." T. Chapter 242 Extremely Domineering. Naturally, they would not know that a big man in Demacia felt that he was inexplicably cheated. Lester, wearing a luxurious black dress, took off his mask in front of the eyes of thousands of people and spoke majestically amid the exclamations and praises of countless women. "Thank you all for coming thousands of miles to the Emerald Territory to witness this great moment together. Throughout the thousands of years of history of the Valoran continent, we have never seen God so fond of a gathering place for mortals." The sword descended from the sky, and the saints blessed it. From the shining place, the stars fell, and all things surrendered. The unclean were all turned into ashes in the holy fire. From the other side of the virtual night to the original sun, in the eyes of the masses, the power of the gods poured into the immortal body, and the divinity cast an invincible iron bone. However, the sword given by God is only for the choice of the master. The long rainbow penetrates the sun, and the sword should be drawn under the scorching Sunday. Looking at the various eyes of fear, worship, respect, or admiration, Lester's voice became high-pitched. "I will definitely live up to the god's trust. Burn away the darkness, annihilate the evil, defend the Holy Land and the human world for thousands of generations. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the man walked step by step towards the angel sisters standing on the high platform. With each step, a crystal ice step several meters long was formed under his feet. Under the dazzling refracted colorful light, hundreds of ice steps connected the high platform with the deep pit of the arena. This skill of casting spells without chanting and without a staff shocked countless people, reminding them that the Lord of the Emerald Territory was still a powerful black wizard. Putting on the mask again, the man came between Miss Ha and Hina, who were wearing long dresses, like the most gentle groom. With Rose's raised eyebrows, he slowly took the hands of the two girls wearing silk gloves, white silk Miss Ha on the left and black silk Hina on the right. The three looked at each other, and under the guidance of the man, the two girls began to walk down the crystal ice steps. Many people wanted to record this perfect scene with the image crystal, but the crystal was soon taken away politely by the oncoming Black Iron Guards. However, the magic cameraman, deliberately sent by Lester, dutifully recorded the scene in the crystal ball with magic, waiting to be reproduced, and sold at a good price. The audience just woke up from the shocking and charming appearance of the Demon Lord, and soon fell into doubt. How could a sword have two owners? The Yodelman Dudu and his good friend Laura sat in their seats with their legs crossed, eating delicious food, while watching everything in the field intently, exclaiming in amazement. After a few days of getting along, even Laura, who didn't like humans very much, had a great liking for Lester. At this moment, she was praying in a low voice, hoping that the ceremony could go on smoothly. Laura was still very happy about the praise from the Lord today. Stender stroked the beard on his chin, re-evaluated the strength and value of the Emerald Territory and Lester, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. The deputy of Shurima's great warlord, the bearded Shaharo, took his hand off the buttocks of his female subordinate and stood up with his eyes narrowed. The Berusi beast priest gently stroked the animal bones in his arms, suppressing the faint fear coming from his body. Looking at the gorgeous and powerful ice magic with disgust, Oren frowned and closed his eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. However, the depressed Kraken followed the godlike man with his eyes, thinking about how to deal with such terrible magic on the battlefield outside the Forbidden Magic Stone. If he continued to think about the beautiful dragon bird, he would definitely go crazy. When the three of them were halfway there, the long-planned accident happened. Several waves of magic suddenly appeared, and the flames and thunder intertwined, flying towards the three people on the ice steps. A dozen other assassins with extraordinary skills attacked the Black Iron Guards who were caught off guard. After seizing their weapons, they fought with more soldiers who were coming in front of them, buying time for their companions who were mixed in the crowd. 5 agile attackers behind them successfully jumped onto the arena. Amid the whistling of crossbow arrows, they opened their body shields, blocked the crossbow arrows, and rushed straight towards the sword. The Dark Blood crossbow guards, who had been ready in the dark, raised their dark red magic steel crossbow arrows and, according to the Lord's instructions, aimed at the 4 attackers and pulled the trigger. The body shield was as if it didn't exist and was easily broken by the crossbow arrows. The 4 assassins who were hit by arrows widened their eyes, looked at the several large holes in their chests in disbelief, and fell heavily to the ground. The 5th person narrowly avoided all the crossbow arrow attacks and successfully jumped into the deep pit, where the sword was, with a look of ecstasy on his face. At the same time, Lester opened his body shield and blocked all the attacking magic. He looked at the spellcasters on the stands with cold eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up. The next moment, the black guards in heavy plate armor entered solemnly, bringing a strong pressure to the crowd. The breastplate and face armor blocked the oncoming ice cones, and the beheading sword easily chopped off the horrified head of the caster. The blood flowed in the audience, leaving a shadow on many people. The timid ones were directly frightened by the murderous aura that soared into the sky, and their bladders loosened, and they wanted to find a place to relieve their fear. For the heavy armored black warriors who had never appeared before, many forces stared at them, and they wanted to dig out their eyeballs and stuff them into the iron armor, to see what kind of monster was inside. They couldn't see what was special about the crossbow arrows that penetrated the magic shield, but many spies could see that the dark red plate armor of the black warrior seemed to be made of a special mineral material. In the VIP seats, Oren, who opened his eyes in shock, gave his own conclusion. The heavy armored infantry of the Emerald Territory is similar to the Steel Swordsman Corps. It seems that the Emerald Territory has also mastered a special and excellent mineral similar to mithril, otherwise ordinary armor would not have the property of defending magic. With his eyes fixed on the blackguard, Kraken's heartbeat accelerated unconsciously, and his blood flowed faster. He didn't know that this was called excessive secretion of adrenaline. He only knew that every time he encountered a strong enemy, he would have this sense of urgency and excitement before the battle. There is no doubt that these black armored warriors are enough to cause great damage to the fully dressed steel swordsman. The black armored warriors are terrible enemies comparable to the steel swordsman corps. Uncle Oren, I feel threatened. If we meet on the battlefield with the same number, the steel swordsman corps I lead is not 100% sure to defeat them. However, with such an important ceremony and so many hidden powers in the Emerald Territory, why would such a stupid attack occur? Facing Kraken's question, Oren set his sights on the motionless demon-faced lord on the ice steps. He seemed to see the man sneer behind the mask. Lester, he is using the lives of the attackers to show the terrible force of the Emerald Territory. He has long seen through this attack. These self-righteous attackers are just another performance besides the flying dragons and birds, and are just tools to show off force. Look at Shahero's expression. This time when he returns, the Emerald Territory will have another Shurima ally who is completely submissive. Black armored warriors and magic breaking crossbows are the secret forces that the Emerald Territory has never made public. Now they are showing them in public. It is obvious that they are not going to keep them hidden anymore and are ready to let these secret forces join the battlefield. I'm just worried that this is not the true foundation of the Emerald Territory. Oren's frown made Kraken feel cold all over, and the hair on his back stood up. Uncle Oren, what do you mean? Nodding, Oren said in a deep voice. Yes, in the Emerald Territory, there may be something more terrifying, something that is better than the black armored warrior, and can easily establish victory. This time, we really came to the right place. The strength of the Emerald Territory is definitely much stronger than we imagined. Thanks to the book friend, Gods Will Cry, for the 10,000 points reward. Thanks to the book friend, LLM Gingervinegar, for the 1,500 points reward. And thank you all for your monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Thanks. Here comes the point. Who else wants to squeeze me dry? Do you think I look like someone who lacks a leader? Hallmaster, collection of monthly tickets, operation officer, group management, storage, and a mind? What? You said I lack everything? Nonsense. I have everything. Okay. Nervous. Chapter 243 Drawing the Sword. The masked man was stunned as he grasped the hilt of the sword with excitement. The soul-questioning words of the star spirit came from the depths of his heart. The man could not understand them, let alone answer them. The next second, the surging divine fire quickly engulfed the sword-drawn man, burning the masked man from the inside out to ashes, and also made the others who were greedy in the turmoil give up their fluke mentality. The scene was quickly calmed down. In the air, Lester bowed slightly to the people present and smiled. I hope everyone will like this entertainment program, and I hope more performers can participate in this grand performance. The ceremony continued. At this moment, even Oren, who hated magic, fixed his eyes on the demon lord because he felt a huge threat from the man. As she got closer and closer to the sword, with Lester holding her left hand, Miss Ha felt the throbbing in her heart become more and more profound. Fear, desire, nostalgia, longing, all kinds of emotions turned into complex emotions that impacted her rationality. The closer she got to the sword, the more she wanted to get close to it. The urge to pull out the sword became more and more intense. She even had the urge to break free from the man's right hand. When her rationality was about to collapse, the blonde girl suddenly remembered every bit of her relationship with the man over the past month, as well as the encouragement that lingered in her ears. Miss Ha, no matter what happens in the future, you must understand that you are a good girl with your own thoughts. It is your parents who gave you life and humanity, and also gave you the name Miss Ha. These are the most precious things in your life. You can never abandon them. Anything that tempts you to give up your humanity and emotions is your mortal enemy. You must reject them without hesitation, and kill them when necessary. The words engraved into the bones and integrated into the soul made the girl sober up, and then she gave up the idea of breaking free, but pulled closer. Feeling the girl's changes in movement, Lester smiled silently under the mask. Using magic to deepen the hypnotic memory was indeed more effective than normal subconscious implantation. Lester said that the sword was likely to be something from heaven, and things from heaven would gradually make the user's emotions fade and become less human. If this is true, I cannot agree. Obviously, emotions are the most precious thing. Thinking of this, Miss Ha felt that the sword's temptation to her suddenly became much less, which formed a strong contrast with the feeling of being possessed just now, and made the girl wary of the sword that affects people's hearts. Unlike Miss Ha, Hina, who focused all her attention on the man, held a Buddhist mentality towards the sword. For the black-haired girl, every minute and every second with Lester was the most precious. At this moment, the romantic ceremony like a wedding hall made the girl completely forget that she was also the owner of half of the sword. After the incident, there was no more trouble. The three of them successfully followed the crystal ice steps to the deep pit. The man stopped outside the pit, released his two little hands, and gave the two girls an encouraging hug. Go, as the true owner of the sword, you will not be harmed. I will watch you here. Looking at each other, Miss Ha and Hina mustered up their courage, held hands, looked at their extremely nervous father in the stands, and walked down together. The two beautiful girls were getting closer and closer to the sword, making many people present hold their breath. If they failed, it would be a pity to die to such beautiful girls. Many smart people who knew the Demon Lord were thinking about why the Demon Lord believed that the two girls were qualified to draw the sword, and then took into account the girls' life experience and quickly learned about the existence of Kiram. After learning about the girls' life experience from the accompanying staff, Oren frowned. So, as a refugee, Ziram originally wanted to settle down in Demacia, but later left Demacia because of Javan's policies and came to the Emerald Territory with his daughter? I'm afraid that's the case. The Demon Mask Lord used the refugee invasion to seize power in the Nokmachi Plains and defeated the Mombians, which aroused Uncle Javan's vigilance. As a result, Uncle Javan began to strictly examine the identities of the refugees, forcing the frightened Ziram to give up the idea of settling in Demacia. I have to say, if this was the plan of the Demon Mask Lord, it would be too terrible. No, it's not a plan, it should be a coincidence. Otherwise, with Lester's means, he would definitely send someone to pick up Ziram instead of letting Ziram take his daughter to seek refuge. Before that, Lester didn't know what Ziram's daughter meant. Shaking his head to reject Kraken's guess, Oren glanced at the two girls, and then quickly turned his gaze to the man's tall back, serious and deep. Although it's a coincidence, this man is too scary to have such a sharp decision. If Demacia and Naxos go to war, Emerald Territory will not only become Naxos's bridgehead, but also the most difficult enemy to deal with. If Naxos is confirmed to invade Demacia, we must kill this man first at all costs, even if it means assassination. Having come to his own conclusion, Oren closed his eyes before Lester turned around and looked at him, avoiding the man's meaningful gaze. The call of the sword became louder and louder. Miss Ha and Cinna slowly approached the god-given sword with a glazed sword body and a shining golden hilt, trying to suppress the impulse of their bodies. Finally, the two girls were less than 2 meters away from the sword. As if sensing the girl's presence, the sword began to emit a faint golden halo and began to show its own vision, which also relieved many Emerald Territory residents who were worried about the girl's safety. Although the vision cannot prove that the girl is the chosen one of the sword, it at least means that the girl's identity is different from that of other sword drawers. Some people are always superior. Did you hear that, sister? Hina stopped 1 meter away. Yes, sister, I heard a familiar call. Nodding, Miss Ha also stopped, hesitated, and spoke. It's like my mother's voice. Sister, do you believe this is a gift from our mother? Seeing the strange smile on her sister's face, Miss Ha shook her head. I don't know, but if this is a gift from our mother, I don't think it should be like this. Although her memory of her mother is already vague, Miss Ha is willing to believe that her mother is a very gentle person. How can a gentle person forcibly use her gentleness to destroy other people's feelings? Hina nodded without comment and whispered. Brother Lester told me that no matter what the sword tells me, I can't believe it, because the owner of this sword, the so-called god, broke up our family, forcibly separated our parents, and even enslaved our mother. Wait, Lester talked to us about something different? It's different. Brother Lester told me that you, sister, are the real owner of the sword and the ultimate target that the gods want to control. In order to make you believe this, Brother Lester specifically told me to tell you before touching the sword, otherwise you will never believe what kind of evil and despicable thing we are about to get. Holding her sister's hand, Zinna's face became serious. Are you ready, my sister? Get his power, and then reject everything he has. After hesitating, Miss Han nodded. Taking a deep breath, the two of them grasped the hilt of the sword at the same time. Work is getting busy. The big bid for the communication business in March is coming. In order to earn more than 2,000 yuan a month, I need to make a lot of bids. The time for writing books is getting shorter and shorter. I don't have many manuscripts in my inventory. In order to ensure continuous updates, I can only save them. It will be difficult to update in the days to come. As a newly graduated 966 social animal, please understand the author's difficulties. It takes 1.5 hours to write a chapter without getting stuck. It takes more than 3 hours to maintain 2 chapters a day. After a day's work, it's 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. There is not much time left for me to create. Although I'm gifted, I can't always have creative inspiration. In order to update frequently, I usually write until after 12 o'clock, but my health is getting worse and worse. I sit in front of the computer all day. At a young age, I have begun to have signs of tenosynovitis and cervical spondylosis. When I can earn 6,000 yuan a month from this book, I will have a reason to explain the situation to my family, quit my job directly, and concentrate on keeping healthy and writing books. By then, I will update 4 chapters a day steadily, and 5 chapters on Saturdays and Sundays steadily. This slacking Bobby will do what he says. I have to write down this 1,000 years in full. Damn it, in the context of a world like Runeterra, the 2 cities, which is a tiny place that hasn't even produced a single drop of shit, is nothing. I don't believe that my book is worse than the book about the Battle of the 2 Cities. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244 Vision. Everyone present held their breath. The moment the 2 sisters grasped the hilts of their swords at the same time, the spark blade split into 2 narrower swords in the divine light. The 2 sisters held them separately. Then, a strange sound and image appeared in the venue. The spiritual voice like the stars in the universe echoed in the sky above the arena, making everyone who heard it seem to be in the vast and boundless world of God. Several young people with the qualifications, recognized by the stars, even saw the sky city made of gold, silver and gems on the giant god peak in the vision. They all fell into a state of trance for a while. Here we come. Standing on the edge of the giant pit, Lester's eyes were very serious. The divine light entered the body from the sword, and Miss Hao and Hina's eyes turned into a majestic golden color. The divine power shaped the bodies of the 2 girls, and changed the weak physiques of mortals, just like the creator painstakingly modified the sculpture that had been carefully carved for several years. The weaknesses of the 2 girls from mortals disappeared one after another, and their mortal bodies turned into divine bodies, entering immortality. Behind her, there was an illusory golden light that condensed into young wings, and finally formed broad white wings. Fortunately, the divine power only opened 2 small gaps in the girl's long skirt, revealing a little bit of her jade-like back, without showing any scenes of clothes bursting, which also made the man breathe a sigh of relief, and removed the ice fog magic that was ready to block his vision. He didn't have any special hobbies. The matter of the material world was done, and Lester closed his eyes. It seemed that the high and mighty Justice Star Spirit appeared in front of him. 1 man and 1 god sat opposite each other at the star curtain table. They spent 10 years placing their own chess pieces and making various arrangements for the spiritual world of the angel girl. Until this moment, both sides could no longer intervene and could only wait for the result. The chess pieces that had been arranged before began to fight, and the man and the god started a tragic struggle for the control of the 2 girls' minds. Let me see, is the giant god of Runeland really omnipotent? The man's voice was very indifferent. Although he didn't want to talk about the revenge of the Justice Star Spirit that almost killed him with a sword, he never forgot it. The Mishap sisters were the contradictions that he and the Justice Star Spirit could never reconcile. From the beginning, the Justice Star Spirit had been hostile to men. The vengeful man would naturally not expose it. Perhaps it was because they were somewhat similar and the same sex repelled each other. He himself did not like those star spirits. Fighting for the Angel Sisters was only the first step in revenge. If he had enough ability, the man would even lead his powerful army to directly kill the heaven of the giant god Peak and flatten the star spirit giant god. Unfortunately, there is still a long way to go before this day, whether it is the Emerald Territory or Lester. Kyle, you have grown up, and your mother really misses you. The kind woman had an extraordinary appearance. Miss Ha recognized it at a glance. The winged woman in front of her was filled with the light of justice. It was her mother, Miss Ura. As for why she suddenly appeared in this golden world full of flowing light, Miss Ha did not understand. At this moment, she just wanted to know where the woman in front of her was, and why she was separated from her father, herself and Sinner. Mom, have you forgotten? My name is Miss Ha, not Kyle. Miss Ha is the name you gave me. After hesitating for a while, Miss Ha took a few steps forward and hugged her mother whom she hadn't seen for a long time. The pain of missing her for more than 10 years of separation made the girl burst into tears soon. Miss Illa also hugged her trembling daughter at the right time, showing her warm maternal love. Miss Ha is your nickname, the name you used before you became an adult. Kyle is the name you really should have. It is also the power inheritance given to you by the gods. It is the divine name that belongs to you. Your name from now on will be Kyle. It was obviously a warm reunion, but the mother said something unquestionable and extremely domineering in a gentle tone. Miss Ha suddenly felt a little uncomfortable, but after thinking about it carefully, it seemed that there was nothing wrong with her mother's words, so she acquiesced to the name Kyle. Anyway, whether to call her Kyle or Miss Ha was up to her. It was not easy to meet each other, so there was no need for her to quarrel with her mother. Mom, are you okay in the heavens? I know you've been fighting for glory, and you must be the one soothing the pain from the rune wars. Was it hard and painful to fight those horrible evils? Pushing her daughter away slightly, Miss Ira's face was full of pride, but Miss Ha could see the resentment and sadness hidden in it. Kyle, how can I be good if I leave you and Morgana? Your unfaithful father betrayed me when I was fighting outside because I was busy clearing the remnants of the rune war and took you and Morgana away from me. In the past 16 years, after the difficult Holy War, I always missed you and Morgana, thinking how good it would be if you and Morgana could stay with your mother. Kiram, he left me. He must be living a carefree and happy life, right? Guessing that the Morgana in her mother's mouth might be the divine name of her sister Sinner, Miss Ha stopped asking, but the girl thought that her father did not mention anything about her mother after leaving her mother and never expressed any sadness and longing, and even got together with the hostess of the tailor shop, Teacher Kisley, a few years ago, and looked like he had no feelings for the old times. Miss Ha felt a kind of resentment towards Kiram and had an impulse to leave Kiram's shackles and go to the heaven to seek the blessing of her mother. Then, the next second, Miss Ha felt something was wrong and frowned. As a father, Kiram's love for her and Hina is beyond doubt. A man has done his best. Why would she feel dissatisfied and resentful towards her father, who has raised her for 16 years, just because of a few words from her mother? Even if her father chose to live with Teacher Cui Silly, it was because he was lonely and wanted to seek a little comfort. Moreover, he deliberately avoided her and her sister every time, with an apologetic look on his face. This was a choice he made for happiness. What right did she have to ask? Moreover, if her father deliberately concealed his true thoughts and his attitude towards her mother in order to prevent her and her sister from worrying about her mother's problems, it was not impossible given her father's delicacy and strength. Then the girl felt that the conversation with her mother at this moment was somewhat familiar. In the trial court of Emerald Territory, there are often some criminals who are good at guiding others' thinking and use words to excuse their crimes with an innocent attitude. When they meet a tough person, they pretend to be pitiful and reasonable, and when they meet a weak person, they are unreasonably tough. These people always downplay the crimes they have committed, so that the jury will shift their attention from the verdict of the crime to other unimportant issues, and distort the truth, in order to achieve the effect of reversing black and white, and not distinguishing between the serious and the minor. Don't think about it, there will be no explosion of clothes. Chapter 245. The star-destroying Dragon King was slandered by the mourning girl Hina. Even a jury that is known for its fairness may be dazzled by the words of a person who is eloquent and make a wrong judgment based on a few words from others. The conversation with her mother at this moment seemed like her mother was deliberately guiding her emotions and the rhythm of the conversation to make her dissatisfied with her father. If the person in front of her was really a gentle mother, would she use words to provoke the relationship between her daughter and her father? After doubts appeared in her heart, in Miss Ha's eyes, the mother who was kind and gentle just now always had an indescribable weirdness. It was her mother, but there was a real sense of strangeness. Miss Ha didn't know what went wrong, but she knew that at this moment she should put aside her daughter's emotional thoughts about her mother, and be more rational. The experience of studying in the jury presided over by Apsil made Miss Ha more rational and difficult to be influenced by others. The girl took a step back calmly, left the warm embrace of Miss Hira, wiped the wet corners of her eyes naturally, and tried. Mom, Dad has always missed you, every day and night. He said that the thing he regretted most was taking me and my sister Sinner away from you. He also said that you were controlled by the evil gods in heaven and couldn't get away, so you turned a blind eye to his departure. He said that one day you will come down and reunite with Sinner and me and our family of 4 Can. It's Morgana. This is very important, Michael. Forget about Sinner, a mortal name that has become a thing of the past. After mastering the power of the Starfire Rune, you and Morgana have become gods and left their mortal bodies. Your divine name is the Angel of Justice Kyle, and your sister's divine name is the Angel of Justice Morgana. These are the names given to you by the God of Justice, and they also contain my love for you. The names Kyle and Morgana can bring you strength, but Miss Ha and Sinner can't. Things that belong to mortals should belong to mortals. Remember, from the very beginning, you and Morgana inherited Mom's divine power from the gods. Mortals are flawed, and you and Morgana are not mortals. As a member of the heaven, you are flawless and perfect. You must not be desecrated. You must have a divine self-awareness, abandon everything in the mortal world, go to heaven and fight alongside your mother, and drive out the evil and darkness in the world. This is the future you should pursue. Miss Hira first interrupted Miss Ha, and then continued. My dear daughter, your father is talking nonsense. Mom has never been controlled by the gods in heaven. The gods in heaven are gods of justice who exercise integrity and justice. How could they do such a despicable thing as controlling Mom? Mom is free, and you must understand that Mom is in heaven for the stability and peace of the world, to eliminate evil, and she voluntarily stays in heaven. Then, Mom, you will not come down from heaven and reunite with Dad. Miss Ha lowered her head. Miss Hira, who had been trying to guide her daughter's emotions, suddenly found that he could not see through his daughter's thoughts at the moment, so he said what Miss Hira himself would say. Of course, I love my daughter and husband all the time, but the cruel war in heaven does not allow me to leave. When I complete the mission given by God, our family will be reunited. Miss Ha raised her head and looked at her compassionate mother hesitantly. But Mom, you just said you are free, and now you say the war in heaven does not allow you to leave. Mom, which of your words is true? Miss Hilla's face seemed to stiffen for a moment, but it seemed not to. With a sigh, the woman who was not understood by her daughter turned her body sadly and gradually disappeared in the girl's world. The time for Mom to descend is coming. Kyle, you will understand in the future what a heavy mission Mom has carried. Go, accept Mom's power with your sister Morgana, find the justice and the future in your heart. Mom is waiting for you in heaven. After her mother Miss Hilla left, everything in front of her turned into a stream of light, and Miss Ha lost consciousness. On the other side, in Zinna's conscious world, Miss Hira looked angry, as if she was disappointed with her daughter. In front of the woman, the black-haired girl sat cross-legged in an M shape without any manners. Then she suddenly crossed her legs and lay on the ground with her head in her arms, staring at her mother who was about to jump up and down with a smile on her face. Mom, my name is not Morgana. My name is Sinner. Sinner, what a nice name. Dad and brother Lester both like it. As for Morgana, what kind of a name is that? The name given by the god of justice is too bad. I don't want any god's name. The face of the holy woman controlled by the justice star spirit suddenly turned black. Even if Miss Ira's consciousness was still here, I'm afraid her face would not be much better for such a rebellious daughter. This was completely different from what she had expected. Compared with her sister, the girl in front of her was more disobedient and less attached to her mother than the star spirit could imagine. He tried to persuade her with all his heart, but encountered obstacles everywhere, and it was difficult to start a conversation between mother and daughter. Where did the cute daughter who used to be a good kid go? The Justice Star Spirit regretted not adding more divine power to the Starfire Runeblade to turn the hateful man and the evil Emerald territory into ashes, and give justice to the Runeland. After holding it in for a long time, Miss Ira, whose face flushed red, almost turned into pig liver, finally managed to utter a word. Morgan. HMM. The daughter narrowed her eyes, her face calm but brewing displeasure. In the dungeon of the Edge of Night, she liked to observe those death row prisoners who deserved to die in this way, and design new torture instruments for them. Zinna, don't you love your mother anymore? Hearing that her mother didn't say the stupid Morgana out loud, Zinna smiled with curved eyebrows. Love? How can I not love? Zinna loves Lester brother and mom and dad the most. Mom, you rarely come down once. Have a good rest. Let Zinna give you a massage. This is my personal experience, although I'm still not as good as Lester brother's technique, but I also learned it from my sister with great difficulty. Mom, this is the easiest way to make people feel comfortable. I don't know if dad has massaged you. Getting up from the ground, Zinna came to Miss Ira, and in Miss Ira's sad eyes, she reached her hand into the halo and operated skillfully. Facing the daughter who ravaged her body, the Justice Star Spirit who had lived for thousands of years and had never experienced such a weird battle was neither moving nor not moving. The Star Spirit did not know what expression it should show, and could only maintain a sad posture, motionless like a sculpture, without any reaction, which made Zinna, who had worked hard for a long time, sigh and retract her futile hands in boredom. The dough will not ferment and expand, and there is no pleasant breathing. It is really boring to knead this dough. Even if she slapped herself in shame and anger, the woman in front of her was just like a wooden person with no joy or sorrow. Brother Lester was right, it was indeed fake. Lying back on the ground, the girl dozed off and patted her mouth in boredom. Brother Lester said that, if you don't feel this, you may not be a normal person. You need special ancestral methods to heal your physical illness. Mom, you should come down from heaven and reunite with dad. Don't look at dad's age. When he was with teacher Cui Silly, he was still very vigorous. But in my opinion, dad is still a lot worse than brother Lester. Oh, by the way, you can find brother Lester. He is very powerful. When the time comes, the two of us will go together and call sister. Turning around woodenly, the Justice Star Spirit had completely given up on this hopeless and unfilial daughter who tried to betray her mother, and Miss Ira left quickly. You will understand later, Morgana. Mom is waiting for you in heaven. Watching mother leave, Zinna sneered. Heaven? Brother Lester said that even dogs don't go there. At the same time, in an unknown galaxy in the universe, the Starforging Dragon King, who was being pulled by Panson with the dragon binding chain, suddenly opened his mouth and sneezed. The terrifying energy, no less than a gamma ray burst, brushed past the side of the War Star Spirit with its hair standing on end, and passed through more than a dozen lifeless planets along the way. The aftermath flew into the deep space of the universe. In the blink of an eye, billions of meteorites turned into cosmic dust, which scared Panson, who was pulling the dog chain. The bright Starrow's crown has bound and erased all the thoughts of the Star Dragon that were unfavorable and rebellious to the Titan. How can the Star Dragon still make such a threatening move against the Titan? Dragon, do you want to kill me? The Starforging Dragon King, who was too lazy to pay attention to the dog relying on the dragon's power, was thinking about returning to the heaven and turning the despicable Titan incarnations and their stars into interstellar dust. He scratched the big head of the main galaxy with the front paws of the small galaxy and felt a little confused. He always felt that some interesting little life was slandering him. Seeing that the Starforging Dragon King ignored him, Pantheon roared at the starry sky dragon again. I'm talking to you. Can't you hear me? What? What the hell is talking to me? There are flies in the universe? The starry sky dragon glanced at Pantheon, who was standing with his hands on his waist, in a daze, and soon looked at the deep space of the universe, looking arrogant. Since the destruction of the Void Planet, Pantheon, who had been bullied by the unhappy Dragon King, was so angry that he pulled the dragon binding chain in his left hand and tightly grasped the starry sky spear in his right hand. The War Star Spirit grinned and gritted his teeth without saying a word. Oh, I'm hallucinating. I heard a stupid and arrogant voice without any warning. It turned out to be you, an idiot who lives with gritted teeth every day. By the way, aren't you tired of living like this? Dragon. Don't forget. Who is your master now? He pulled out the dragon chain fiercely, causing the Star Dragon to stagger, and then use the Star Rose crown to curse the Dragon King. In the struggle, Aurelian Sol deliberately avoided several planets to save the cute little ball from disaster. Little thing, if you really think that a chain can make the Great One a dog, then I can only say that it's time to change someone in the name of Pantheon. You threatened me? The angry War Star Spirit received a response of two arrogant nostrils formed by super large galaxy rings. I think you misunderstood. You are not worthy of being threatened by me. The 4th volume will end tomorrow. Do you want to write a summary at the end of the volume? Chapter 246 Home. In the arena, the strange vision in the sky finally dissipated, and the angel slowly folded its wings and opened its golden eyes. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lester walked slowly down and stopped 1 meter away from the two girls. He quietly looked at the two girls who had already come to the conclusion, and the man said nothing. Brother Lester. I succeeded. She casually threw the split star symbol blade on the ground like trash and took a step forward and hugged the man directly, hanging her body on him. What's your name? The man's voice was obviously gentle and calm, but Hina could hear a little nervousness. Knowing that the man was worried that he would lose his way, Hina smiled and leaned into the man's ear, biting his earlobe with her teeth. I'm Cinna Morgana or something like that. It's too ugly, I don't want it. By the way, Brother Lester, how did you know I would have a new name? And oh, you seem to have guessed that my sister and I would grow angel wings? So cunning. Patting Cinna's back, the man put down the girl who was holding him and looked at Miss Ha, who was hesitant and tightly grasping the fire rune blade. Are you still Miss Ha? The blonde girl pursed her lips, finally nodded, stepped forward, and held the man's hand with her empty left hand. When confused, the girl was still willing to believe her father and the entangled man in front of her. After all, he had even touched her body. What else could she do when facing the person she liked? And her mother's appearance was indeed strange. Lester did not abandon the part of humanity for Miss Ha, who was in the most dangerous situation. He laughed sincerely, patted the girl's shoulder, and looked up at the sky. The man seemed to see a guy who was high above and jumping anxiously. After all, he was slightly better in this invisible war. The competition between the Angel Sisters has passed the most dangerous first stage. Morgana and Kayla are gone for the time being, which means that he has been completely exposed to the sight of the Protoss. Even Lester cannot see the future outcome. Who knows? Tomorrow the Justice Protoss might be so angry that he will blow the Emerald Territory and himself into slag with a big sword. The result of being hostile to the Protoss is doomed to be irreversible. At present, the only ones who can resist the power of the Protoss are probably the Angel Sisters. Any mortal power is just sending themselves to death when facing the power of the Protoss, even if they bet on the entire Emerald Territory. This is the world of the extraordinary. The life and death of mortals are always in the hands of the extraordinary. The human wave tactics simply do not work in the Runeland. If he could free the star-forging Dragon King, Aurelian Thor, from the Star Rose crown that bound his body, it would be the best result for Lester. With the Dragon King's anger, it would probably only take a cigarette to turn the high and mighty Star Spirit into a recyclable cosmic garbage. Unfortunately, with his current strength, he couldn't even beat the Star Spirit, let alone free the Dragon King, who was controlled by the Star Spirit. Although he was still a little worried about the future, Lester didn't regret the current result. The man turned around and looked at the people present, who were shocked and speechless. He glanced at the complicated expression of his father-in-law, Kiram, and said loudly, Miss Ha and Cinna, they are the masters of the sword. They will become the most powerful guardians of the Emerald Territory. Let's cheer for them. Oh oh oh. Long live the Emerald Territory. Long live Miss Sinner. Long live the Lord. Amid the clamor that resounded through the sky, Lester took a step back and encouraged softly. Miss Hinner, take up the swords in your hands, spread your holy wings, and let everyone see how beautiful and powerful the two guardian angels of Emerald Territory are. Miss rolled her eyes at the man, put aside her worries about her mother's situation, and blushed as she couldn't help but think of what the man said, and the promise she made when she asked Lester to choose between her and her sister. Now she and Hinner have really grown wings and become angels. Although she doesn't know how the man predicted the result 10 years later, she is not a woman who can't afford to lose. It's just that she is still a little shy to really marry the man in front of her with her sister. With the man's lust and absurdity, I'm afraid the two sisters will inevitably serve together and sleep together. With mixed feelings, Miss Harry's the Fire Rune Blade used her divine power to transform into wings and spread her wings to fly high. Following her sister's footsteps, Hinner picked up the Star Rune Blade on the ground and flew into the sky while circling, soaring into the sky. Two rays of divine light intertwined, and the holy wings danced wildly, casting little light in the sunlight. The flames and rain were gilded, which was very beautiful. For Lester, who had already prepared safety pants for the girls in long skirts, he was not afraid that the angel sisters would be seen under their skirts. He always cared for his women, and he still needed to pay attention to the small details to avoid making people unhappy. The blue sky, the scorching sun, the white clouds, the golden feathers, the 100-meter ice steps, the vast sky, everything in front of them was beautiful like a dream, making the audience present intoxicated. Many beings who already possessed power had a little more sincere awe for the unknown gods in heaven and the angel sisters who possessed artifacts. For more mortals, even the envy and jealousy had completely disappeared, leaving only the reverence for the Emerald Territory and the Demon Lord Lester. The innate instinct and the guidance of the power of the sword allowed the two girls, who were already demigods, to cross countless thresholds and mountains in just a dozen minutes and reach a powerful realm that ordinary people could never reach in their lifetime. Some people need to do their best and spend their whole lives to reach Rome, while some people are born in Rome. Many ordinary people may not be able to find where the people in Rome live their lives. Even Lester, who has a strong mind, felt jealous of the power of the angel sisters who directly ascended to the throne of God in a trance. Apart from anything else, flying freely in the sky with wings is a dream of many people. Although such thoughts are only a fleeting human instinct, it is understandable, but Lester can't help but start to reflect. With the information and settings obtained in the game in his previous life, he who understands the source of the power of the star spirits will sink into it inadvertently. Can the angel sisters really keep their humanity? After reflection, the man knew that this was a question that made him more and more afraid the more he thought about it, and there was no answer at all. You can only try your best, try harder, and then wait for the final result. There is no other way. It is impossible for me to deprive Miss and Hinner of their star power, nor can I defeat the giant god in heaven to escort the angel sisters. Instead, the Emerald Territory needs to rely on the power of the angel sisters. With mixed emotions, Lester looked up at the sky and the sunshine, and felt that the two sisters in the sky were flying farther and farther between the flapping of their wings. In a private VIP seat, Kiram withdrew his gaze from the two flying daughters until he could no longer see the two girls in his sight. The man slowly lowered his head and tightly tightened his pale lips. Trialai, who was sitting next to him, patted the man's hunched back and comforted him with silent movements. Feeling the woman's kindness and warmth, his heart subconsciously relaxed. Kiram leaned in the woman's arms, and his hollow voice was full of confusion. It's exactly the same as their mother 12 years ago, with the same shining sun body protection, the same dazzling brilliance, the same white wings, and the same flowing sword. The only difference is that this is not a heaven made of gold, silver and gems, and there aren't so many cold and arrogant heavenly wizards who look down on people. As a father, I have never told them anything about their mother. I don't want them to know that they have an indifferent mother who has become a god, for fear that, after arousing their curiosity, the most desperate scene will happen to me again. I've had enough of the unbearable sadness of losing Miss Hira, and I don't want to feel the pain of losing my loved ones again. I can't accept watching them leave indifferently, watching them look at me as if I were a stranger. That would drive me completely crazy, completely mad, and I would definitely die in madness, and I would end my own life in collapse. Kisali gently hugged the trembling man and held the man's head in her arms, but she could not stop the man from continuing to be afraid. She had always known that the man was deeply hurt, but only at this moment did she truly understand how deeply the man was hurt. For a period of time, I watched Mishap and Hina grow up and become more and more like their mother. I couldn't sleep at night. I was afraid that they would follow their mother's old path, getting further and further away from me and closer to God, until I had to kneel down, bend down, and lower my head if I wanted to see them. I had to use the most humble and submissive attitude to let the arrogant and indifferent stranger convey my request to meet them. I was afraid that in the end, I wouldn't even be able to kneel down to see them. I was afraid that I would be like their mother, who suddenly became a different person after the divine light from the sky shone on her, abandoning her feelings for her family, forgetting the 7 emotions and 6 desires of human beings, and becoming a god who was high above and looked at the world with cold eyes. As expected, as if it had been destined from the beginning, their mother really came to find them, wanting their daughters to embark on the same path of ascension as she had. I was so scared, so scared. I was so scared that I would lose Mishap and Hina, just like I lost Misira. I was afraid that they would look at me with cold eyes, with something in their eyes that I couldn't understand. But, I see now that they seem to be the same as Misira, but also different. Their eyes looking at Lester are still full of love that cannot be dispersed, which is far greater than their attachment to me as their father. The eyes that once made me jealous to the point of madness have now become my happiest placebo, which makes me feel relieved. Mishap and Hina, who have grown wings, are not like their mother Misira, who treats their lovers with indifference. It is as if they have suddenly become a different person, becoming indifferent and ruthless, like a stranger they have never met. I'm unwilling, I envy, I regret, but I'm very happy. Although I'm still very unwilling, Lester has done what I have never done. He allowed Mishap and Hina to retain the greatest humanity after contacting the giant god. This made me start to think, is it that I have not done enough for Misira, not enough love for her, not enough care for her, not enough to let her remember that she is a person with a family, a husband, and a daughter, not a god who saves the world. I was frustrated. Although I had never thought of comparing myself with Lester at the beginning, I had to admit that I was far inferior to Lester. What surprised me most was that my daughter was still pure. Lester, he didn't even use the despicable means that men use to deepen the feelings between men and women, and he let Mishap and Hina successfully escape from the influence of the giant god. This is something I can't do. I'm really incompetent. I can't even find where the problem with Misira is. If it was Lester, he would definitely be able to do it. Bring Misira back from the heaven on the giant god's peak. How I want to use the power of a god, like a man, to protect my wife and kill her down from the heaven. Bring my mother back to my daughter, and the 4 of us live in a stable and peaceful place for the rest of our lives, with many children and grandchildren. They grew gray hair together, watched the sun rise and sunset together, and amid the laughter of their grandchildren, they pinched each other's wrinkled cheeks, brought up past scandals, to make fun of each other, recalled every little bit of their youth, loved each other, and finally, with the care of their daughter and son-in-law, closed their eyes at the same time, buried together, and entered the next reincarnation. I don't want to save the tribe anymore. I don't want to save the tribe. In my whole life, I only want to save you. I only want to save you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Listening quietly to the cries of the man in her arms and shielding the injured man from the joyful carnival around her, Trialai protected Kiram in a small world, being his unique listener and comforter, until the tired man fell asleep, gently comforted by the silently crying woman, patting his back, like a child comforted by his mother. You are the greatest father and the most competent husband. This is what I like most about you. You have done well enough. Although I can never replace Misira's position in your heart, I'm willing to stay by your side. You want to protect Misira and your daughter, but I only want to protect you. In his sleep, Kiram blocked the drizzling spring rain with his felt hat and ran on the grass with Misira's hand in the joyful laughter of his 2 daughters. On this small piece of grass, there is no tribe, no rune war, no Targon, only a warm home. PS1, the 4th volume has been successfully completed, and flowers are thrown to celebrate. The 5th volume will open new maps of Demacia and Ionia. Book friends who are interested in Forbidden Magic Stone Forest and Vastair's Iaru must not miss it. The protagonist will also leave the Valoran continent and start an exciting adventure, kidnapping the goddess of coolness and purple garlic. PS2, thank you to all the book friends who have been supporting me with follow-up reading. I understand the hardship of follow-up reading, but now that big data is used as the starting point for recommendation standards, follow-up reading data is very important. The follow-up reading rate is directly linked to the recommendation position, so readers who are capable are welcome to continue to follow up. Even if you don't read after subscribing, you can quickly scroll to the last page. In fact, you have to stay on the page for at least 30 seconds to be considered as reading, but it's too troublesome, just cross it out. And you can close it after the page of the XTH follow-up reader appears. Thank you everyone. PS3, if you think this book is still to your taste, please support me more. I need monthly tickets and rewards, and you can also join the group to directly feed the staying up late Bobby. Your recognition is my biggest motivation for writing. Off topic, this book has 560,000 words. The fact that you can read this far shows that this book still has certain commercial value and appeal. The title of Apprentice only requires 500 fan points. For book friends who still have the trainee title up to this chapter, please be sure to leave a message in the comments section about the reason why you don't want to subscribe to chapters or skip reading. After that, I will try to correct it as much as possible in future chapters and do my best to help you remove the title of trainee so that I won't be at risk of a heart attack when replying to comments. Thank you. Chapter 247 Arms Race. Even though more than 3 months have passed, the people of Valoran still remember the day when the angel's wings folded and danced, the stunning beauty of the vast glazed ice steppes, and the unprecedented grand wedding that followed. Even the Vastair winged people, who are very picky about aesthetics and natural art, cannot find any flaws that can convince themselves. The shock and beauty brought by that scene are enough to be recorded in the art history of Valoran. In the Pale Angel Square, the wedding celebration of the Angel Sisters and the Demon Lord gave the people of the other world who had never seen a modern wedding an unprecedented amazing experience. For a time, the wedding dress with an emerald collar became the aristocrat among luxury goods. For most artists who pursue beauty, this is an unforgettable performance from beginning to end. 4 fierce and warlike warriors, the brutal gladiatorial fight, and 100,000 Shurima gold coins that started again on the field, paved with earth magic after the sword chose its master are even more exciting. Only the representatives and spies of various forces observed the hidden military power of the Emerald Territory with serious faces, especially the Narkson Black warriors who were born from the Narkson Black Iron Guard. Whether in terms of momentum or equipment, they are not inferior to the strongest steel swordsman legion in Demacia, and even better in cold appearance. In addition, the steel armor equipped by the mutant silver-winged dragon bad under the crotch of the Demon Lord was enough to let the idiots of the faction with the least keen military sense understand that the Emerald Territory already had an irresistible elite army. Before the Emerald Territory ended the carnival ceremony that lasted for half a month, many messengers with important missions rode their panting horses and traveled thousands of miles a day, personally handing over secret letters related to the safety of the forces in the next 10 years to the authorities. The restless Runeland soon calmed down, but in the unknown dark, each force started a new round of arms race. Demacia accelerated the modification of the Steel Swordsman core silver equipment, replanned the training process of the Dragon Bad Knights, and began to design the Dragon Bird cavalry armor with reference to the style of the Emerald Territory. Even the Forbidden Magic Watchtower began to expand further. Under the orders of Jarvandark and Orin, Demacia decided to build the first permanent Forbidden Magic fortress east of the Eternal Green Fang line as an ale, to defend against the attack of Narxus and the Emerald Territory. Unlike Demacia, the simple and warlike Narxons were once again full of fighting spirit for the strength of the Emerald Territory. They accelerated the training of the Dragon Lizard Knights and began to redesign new pulley crossbows in accordance with the advanced design concept of the Emerald Territories crossbows, abandoning the original cumbersome method. Many soldiers were looking forward to the Immortal Fortress receiving military assistance from the Emerald Territories elite soldiers to wipe out the difficult Freljord barbarians in the north and the grassland barbarians in the Dalmor plains in one fell swoop. In particular, after Stender personally explained everything about the Emerald Territories sword ceremony to the Immortal Fortress's supreme command, many leaders slammed their hands and stamped their feet, regretting that they could not witness it all with their own eyes. Fortunately, the Emerald Territory has promised to send several angel dances recorded with advanced magic image crystals to the rulers of the Immortal Fortress, which is enough to give those who did not participate a sense of being there. Combined with the secret magic engraving technology of the Icathia magic pattern plate, these dazzling and fragile image crystals protected by the absolute magic crystal box will spontaneously destroy their internal stable structure, as long as they sense low-level magic fluctuations, after leaving the absolute magic crystal box, causing the magic crystals that can repeatedly play images countless times to suffer irreparable damage, which eliminates the possibility of forcible replication with magic. Each angel dance can be called a unique artistic treasure of the Emerald Territory, worthy of being used as the Emerald Territory's top state gift in diplomacy. In addition to the top-level angel dance, there are also mass-produced low-end angel dance crystals for sale, with different content and perspective, and the quality is naturally incomparable to the former, but it is enough for the Emerald Territory to make another fortune. Of course, this was all Lester's idea. For the Emerald Territory, the halo of the two chosen angels who are now the wives of the Lords shrouds the Emerald Territory, making the people of the Emerald Territory more proud, and also attracting many people who like the Emerald Territory and desire stability, to choose to settle down and become a part of the Emerald Territory. However, for Lester, compared with the emotional couple life with Miss Hadansina, there are several more important things to deal with. First of all, Dimmest, who has been following the evil little wizard Vika, has confirmed that this yodel who has been left over from the Dark Ages and tortured and ravaged by the tyrant Mordekaiser for many years has arrived at the easternmost village of the Emerald Territory, located at the northern foot of the Silver Mountains, a village called Nost. Since the meat has been delivered to the door, how to eat the fat meat has become a priority. No one has been assigned to take the little wizard back to the Emerald Territory, just because the little wizard has a weird temper and ordinary people can't control it at all. If you are not careful, it will cause the other party to feel bad. It is better to wait for Lester to deal with it personally. The charm aura brought by Alina is the best social artifact. Then there is the new war agreement between Emerald Territory and Immortal Bastion. Alice will lead the Dark Blood Crossbow Guard and the Dark Iron Guard, including an elite Black Guard team, to the Immortal Bastion for repairs as the Deputy Legion Commander with the agreement conditions set by Lester. After communicating with the Narxan Supreme Command and reaching a new agreement, Alice's Legion will go north in the name of Emerald Territory Support Corps to assist the Narxan Corps fighting the Howling Wind at the northern foot of the Goral Mountains, so that Narxus can gain the ability to fight against the Ironclad Trolls. At that time, Emerald Territory Support Cavalry, General Kled, will also return to the team and be commanded by Alice. Finally, according to the confidential information sent by the Nightblade assassin lurking in Demacia, Lester knew the fundamental reason why Helia stayed in Demacia. It's simple to say that she found her family accidentally and stayed in Mithril Village. After all this time, Helia's husband Lavia and daughter Neria stayed in Demacia, but ended up becoming relatives of the Hilda family. Neria also married Kraken, the only son of Hilda family patriarch Garalist and the captain of the Demacia Steel Swordsman Legion. If the Hilda family really became the Crown Guard family that protected the Demacia royal family when the Demacia royal family was established, then the glorious Lady Lux is actually a direct descendant of Helia. The Demacia Mage Lux actually has the mage blood of the Black Rose of Narxus, counting Demacia's great general Garen as the two pillars of Demacia's physics and magic. The two extremely loyal siblings can actually be considered half Narxans. speechless at the ridiculous information in his hand. Lester naturally would not doubt the authenticity of the information, but he was still shocked by the historical secrets in front of him. But in this case, as the mother-in-law of the commander of the Heliosteel Swordsman Legion, if Meredith is discovered by the Damasia's magic banners, the Kraken should be able to be saved, right? A new volume begins. I hope everyone will support it. Chapter 248, The Road to the North. In Damasia, a remote village about 100 kilometers south of the Urus Mountains, a few months ago, a knowledgeable and kind geologist came. The female scholar named Letty followed the Damasia caravan passing through the Nokmachi plains and traveled westward, passing through several Damasia villages, collecting various rock samples along the Urus Mountains, using the Shurima fine paper in her hand to record the mountains and rivers on the land of Damasia, and used a gentle and polite attitude to get along with the somewhat xenophobic Damasia locals, and even gained an attentive male suitor. However, such an action still aroused the suspicion of the Damasia people. Fortunately, after the magic forbidden person wearing the magic forbidden stone disc searched the upright female scholar, he did not find any illegal, spy items, or manuscripts recording the location of Damasia villages and military secrets, nor did he detect any magical talent of the female scholar. In addition to a large number of Shurima gold coins, the female scholar's bag only contained simple mountain and river topographic maps and rock and mineral specimens, which made the Damasia sheriff completely relieved. After getting the promise that the female scholar would voluntarily hand in the items for a view before leaving, the Damasia sheriff granted the female scholar a basic pass in Damasia, indigo emblem, allowing the female scholar to continue walking on the land of Damasia. Soon, Letty, who had obtained the right to move freely, left the caravan and approached the Urus Mountains further north. Going north along the northbound branch of the inland river, Harmony, on the west coast of the Conqueror Sea, Letty and his follower Evan came to a new village. The pale gravel path on the way made the female scholar understand that even the solemn and majestic Damasia Forbidden City could not build beautiful and deadly forbidden magic stone bricks in every corner. No matter where you are, there is always a place where the sun does not shine. A dozen carriages loaded with heavy goods came on the road. The convoy was escorted by armed soldiers and headed south. Seeing the approaching Damasia soldiers, the ranger Evan, who was wearing simple leather armor and a rough long sword on his waist, wanted to grab the female scholar's hand and lean against the side of the road with her, but the female scholar flexibly dodged and caught nothing. Although she is a scholar, the woman's senses and reaction ability are extremely sharp. A flash of embarrassment passed by, and Evan withdrew his right hand, as if nothing had happened, and whispered, "This is the guards escorting the Miss Letty. We'd better get out of the way, otherwise it might cause trouble." "I understand, but, Mr. Evan, you really don't need to follow me anymore. Damasia is safe enough. As a ranger, you should do more important things, such as eliminating violence and fighting bandits, right?" Leaning to the side of the road to make way for the convoy, the female scholar had a polite smile on her face that kept people away. The female scholar with a high ponytail wore a white robe unique to scholars and brown leather underwear on her high cloth boots. The woman had a smooth and full forehead, a pretty face, willow-shaped thin eyebrows, and sexy thick lips. She was full of the quiet temperament of a scholar, and had a bit of solemnity and momentum that was rare in women. Evan, who followed a few steps closely, smiled and showed his courage and perseverance to pester the woman who rejected him. In his opinion, there is no such thing as a chaste and heroic woman in this world. As long as he can lower his face and maintain enough patience and skills, a sentimental woman will always have an inconspicuous moment of weakness, allowing him to take advantage of it. For most sentimental women, a husband's gentle waiting for more than 10 years is sometimes not as good as the heartbeat satisfaction of a crazy man in one night. Whether it is a married woman or a pure girl, the beauty he covets is just the sense of accomplishment in the moment of success, which is the top pleasure beyond the physical desire. His biggest dream is to be a living erotic ranger, rather than a dried corpse hung on a wooden pole and shouted by everyone, and to let his romantic affairs spread throughout Damasia. Even in Damasia, there are many refugees with bad intentions who do evil. They are idle and left their homeland to come to this beautiful fertile land of Damasia. They want to find stability and fun without working, but they don't know that even in Demacia, there is no room for idle people. So they picked up swords, hid in the dark, and looked for prey with evil eyes. The woman raised an eyebrow at the man's serious look. Seeing the woman's reaction, Evan gripped the hilt of the sword at his waist and looked seriously to both sides of the woman's back, as if the crisis was around him. You have been following the caravan all the way. Under the protection of the caravan, you must not be able to feel the undercurrent hidden under the stability. However, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Lord Jarvan's refugee arrest warrant 10 years ago was born for this purpose. Many disgusting sources of evil were arrested by Lord Jarvan and used as laborers. This has improved the public security in Demacia a lot. And I have been traveling all over the country for several years and have witnessed many tragedies that make people sigh. A charming lady like you has always been the first target of those bad guys, and I have long been impressed by your knowledge and courage. I'm willing to use my life to protect your safety, and my only request is that you must not drive me away and let my sincerity go to waste. Meredith, who used Letty as her pseudonym, frowned and was a little annoyed with the man in front of her who had been pestering her for a month and had some background. He didn't listen to her words. If she took action, she might not be able to beat the man with a crude iron sword, even if she used a magic lock ring to restrain the flow of magic. She didn't have enough reason to drive him away, even if she called the sheriff of Demacia. The man in front of her was a real dogskin plaster, the kind that couldn't be pulled off once it stuck. The most important thing was that she really couldn't do anything to him. Thinking of this, Meredith couldn't help but regret that she didn't let Lester arrange a few guards to protect her secretly. If it was you, what would you do? Meredith sighed, looked at the cargo convoy that was gradually going away, and said softly, Mr. Evan, I just want you to know that I already have someone I like, and there is no point in pestering me like this. Of course, an excellent scholar like you will naturally not lack suitors. I know I'm just the most humble and inconspicuous one, but I still have the courage to be lucky enough to be by your side, Ms. Letty, and do things for you within my ability, which your partner cannot do in time. Since she couldn't get rid of him for the time being, Meredith could only take the man north with her. Fortunately, the female mage could see that, although Evan had ideas about her, he was not the kind of bad person who used despicable means. After all, the most important thing for a romantic ranger is to impress his target with sincerity rather than coercion. Moreover, having a Demacia local with a certain background can also help him find his predecessors in the mage world. Helia's mission location is in a Demacia village called Mithril Village, so he can always get information by going to Mithril Village. Fortunately, this section of the road is not far. Taking a deep breath, Meredith, who used the alias Letty, continued to move forward. Chapter 249 Embrace the Darkness. The heavy snow indicates that the Ice and Snow Festival at the end of the year is approaching again. The people of Emerald Territory stop working and start preparing for the festival. The wealthy countrymen drive their own ox-horse carts to the commercial street of Emerald Territory to experience a rare shopping trip. The poor people will not lack food and clothing. Men carry wood-cutting axes or hunting bows to go out, while women stay at home with their children to sew hempen clothes. The soldiers on duty take off their cold and heavy armor and put on grey fur coats with advanced design concepts. They patrol everywhere with weapons to maintain public order. The soldiers on leave take their own salaries and spend their airtime with their families, get together with relatives and friends, and brag about their military experience while drinking and chatting, winning admiration and praise. The atmosphere of the Ice and Snow Festival is getting stronger and stronger, and the easternmost village of Nost is no exception. Early in the morning, the village chief organized the male villagers to build a wooden platform and bonfire on the main street of the village. According to the requirements of the Lord, they hung red and white festive cloth strips and copper bells on the tallest pine trees, shoveled the snow on the road, brought winter supplies to greet the orphans and widows in the village, and rehearsed the performances for the Ice and Snow Festival. After a week of hard work, it was finally completed before the night of the 7th day. However, on the 8th day, the village chief had to be dragged by his bitter-faced son to watch the mess with a confused look on his face. The wooden floor used as a performance stage was dismantled into a funny trap board with neat gaps. The festive tree with cloth strips was covered with frozen sheep poop, which became smelly. The stone brick road that was originally cleared of snow became a smooth ice rink. In the early morning, more than a dozen villagers who didn't pay attention fell on their butts. On the dozen bonfire wooden platforms that had not yet been lit, there were piles of pumpkin-sized ice heads, two inverted triangle ice eyes and jagged mouths, all showing the evil of the creators themselves. Father, it must have been done by that evil wizard. He always likes to turn beautiful things into. Before he finished speaking, with a click, the frozen sheep poop that could not withstand the pressure of snow slid off the tree and rolled to the feet of the young man. The young man's face rose. Well, it's not so beautiful. The village chief's majestic beard began to tremble. Looking at the lost and angry villagers around him, the old man's eyes were full of anger. Today, he can no longer convince himself to let the evil wizard continue to harm his village. In any case, this matter must be explained. Gale, gather your men, bring your weapons, Before the village chief finished speaking, a man who hid his body under a black robe easily passed through the noisy crowd and walked to the village chief before other villagers could react. We will take over this matter. Dimast, with his face covered, showed the black and red metal emblem of Nightblade to the elderly village chief, which made the village chief and his son Gaul stare at each other. Then their faces changed drastically, and they knelt down on the ground. Although the surrounding villagers did not understand what happened, they knew that someone who the village chief did not dare to provoke must be even more difficult to provoke, so they knelt down together. Even the most honorable black guards under the command of the Legion Commander Margaret had no jurisdiction over those who possessed the emblem. In the Emerald Territory, there was only one person who could control these emblem owners. That was the eternal dark existence whose true face had never been seen, a terrifying legend. Sir, this is a military secret. I can assure you that such a thing will not happen again in the village. Remember, don't ask too many questions, and don't say too much. Hearing the big man say this, the village chief, who was bowing his head, was relieved. Yes. On the hillside of the northern foothills of the shimmering silver mountains near the village, a small bonfire bravely danced in the night. In front of the bonfire, Vika, wearing a wizard's hat, proudly put his hands on his waist, leaned over and looked at the human village at the foot of the mountain that he was afraid of. He couldn't help clapping his hands and dancing. The warlord's dark gauntlets made a bang bang sound of collision, as if celebrating the victory of his master. As a great master who pursues darkness and supreme magic, Vega knows that his road will never end. Only by making more humans succumb to his darkness and terror, and only by making his evil become a legend of fear on the Valoran continent, can he become more similar to the Dark Tyrant. Vega has always believed that, if he can really do the same as the Dark Tyrant, he can completely get rid of his fear of the Dark Tyrant. On top of that, they are pursuing even more evil and dark forbidden magic. But, Vega's waving little hands gradually drooped down. Facing the cool night breeze on the cliff, the stiff-bodied Yodel hugged his knees and sat on the ground, lowering his head, like a child who had done something wrong. The wind was getting stronger and stronger, blowing the brim of the hat gently against the Yodel's head. Am I doing something wrong? Thinking back to the ewe that sprained her ankle because of the fright she had caused, thinking back to the mess of slugs in the vegetable garden, thinking back to the originally beautiful pine trees that were covered with sheep dung by her magic. Needless to say, the villagers who were tortured by her evil magic were not happy at this moment. The people's hard work was destroyed by her. The Yodel felt ashamed of this, and just as he was about to reflect on his behavior, he felt a tearing pain in his brain. Modkaiser's nether plate armor reappeared before his eyes, and the nail hammer named Nightfall smashed down on his head. The tyrannical and majestic voice echoed in his ears. For a moment, the desperate Vega felt that he had returned to the magic dungeon, where there was no sunlight again, bound by magic chains in the depths of darkness, accompanied by loneliness and terror all day long, and all he saw and heard was tyranny and cruelty. Prove that your curiosity about darkness will last forever, whether it's 100 years or 1,000 years. Use your curiosity to prove that evil and cruelty can be spiritual food. Forget your ridiculous Bandle City. Let's get started. Don't keep our Yodel guests waiting too long. You are afraid, little guy. You should be afraid. Only by surrendering to fear can you win freedom. Spreading darkness and spreading evil is your mission, Vika. Cut off all the heads of the weak and build a city of skulls. Sprinkle their blood and dig a Scarlet River to wait for my return. The tyrant's voice was close at hand, as if he would be locked up in the dungeon again, to welcome 100 years of solitude in the next moment. Vika trembled, and the tears of fear could not be stopped. He locked his body helplessly, allowing the evil voice to invade every safe space of his own unscrupulously, smashing his spiritual sustenance in Bandle City and his concept of good and evil into pieces. The only thing that can fight against darkness is darkness. Vika, you must believe in darkness. Gradually, the Yodel people's thoughts calmed down again. P.S. Thank you for your monthly tickets and rewards. Those who think that Vika will be abducted by Lester to Emerald Neck, please raise your paw. Chapter 250 Absolute Fear. In extreme fear, Vika's mouth curled up evilly again, and his positive feelings towards beautiful things were on the verge of breaking. Only by obeying Mordekaiser's will can he get rid of fear. This is the only way to gain peace. Before the dark thoughts of destruction took control of his will again, Vika was shocked to find that his side quickly rose. When he came to his senses, he had been held in someone's arms with an extremely shameful gesture. The horrible evil thoughts were like a goose being strangled by someone, and they completely died down. You must be very scared and lonely. The warm peace of mind dispelled the fear. Vika, who forgot to be vigilant, put his face in front of the human's chest, his mind blank. Sitting down slowly on the ground, Lester adjusted the posture of the short Yodel in his arms, so that the Yodel could just turn his face sideways and look at the sky with him. Vega, let me watch the stars with you. I know that there is the celestial magic you want. One day in the future, we will go to the celestial together and help you find the powerful celestial magic. Heaven, magic. Vika's body trembled, and he came back to his senses with wide eyes. The warlord's iron claws grasped Lester's arm tightly, pinching purple bruises through his clothes. The Yodel's feet began to struggle, trying to break free from the shackles of humans. The Yodel only forgot that he could use powerful dark arcane magic. Who are you? Let me go. What you fear most is loneliness, but you have been locked up in a dungeon for hundreds of years. You are a kind Yodel, but you are bewitched by the tyrant and want to gain a sense of security. Human. Let me go. I will destroy you. Lester let the unknown face covered by the mysterious magic pierce his right forearm with fangs. He hugged him tightly with his left hand again without changing his expression, and then put his chin on the magic hat and gently pressed against the Yodel's little head. The Yodel in front of him was different from the Stinky Kled. Although he was wearing a strange and scary outfit, he had an unusually good smell. Although he couldn't tell what the smell was, he didn't hate it. Obviously, Vika was different from the sloppy King Kled. He was a good boy who loved cleanliness. Vika, you want to get rid of his influence, so you try to imitate and learn his style of doing things, but your kind nature prevents you from doing the same atrocities and actions as him. All your evil deeds are within the scope of pranks. You don't want to really hurt anyone, so you have been struggling to find your own salvation in a painful and lonely journey. The blood on his forearm had soaked his sleeves, but Lester felt that Vika's fangs seemed to be a little loose. The man's tone became softer and softer. Elena's power gave him the confidence to appease the Yodel. He also believed that Vika, who was kind by nature, would not really hurt him. If possible, I want to give you a little courage to defeat him. I don't know if I can be your salvation and help you get rid of the nightmare. I only know that if you are in pain, you can come to me and I will give you a hug. If you have any grievances, you can also come to me. I will listen to you quietly and give you encouragement and comfort. Let me be your friend, Vika. After an unknown amount of time, Vika finally loosened his bloody fangs. He could no longer find any reason to hurt the human in front of him. The Yodel lowered his head and looked at the human's red sleeves quietly. The man in front of him was the only human who was willing to be friends with the madman now, but he hurt him. The sharp voice suddenly added a bit of grievance. Yes, I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't control myself. No, your will is already very strong. Even the most powerful people can't stand 100 years of loneliness, but you did it. You should be proud of you. Seeing that Vega finally calmed down, Lester loosened the yodel a little, allowing the yodel to gain more space for activities, and also allowing Lester to truly observe the mysterious face under the iron hoop hat face to face. As expected, under the magic hat, there were two round evil yellow lights, but the yellow lights were different from the usual fierce inverted triangles. At this moment, the yellow lights were two Q-shaped patterns, refer to CAC, but without A, as if they were crying, and looked very pitiful. What's your name, and why do you know about me? After memorizing the appearance of the human in front of him, Vega leaned on the man's chest and tilted his head to look at the night sky. The stars in Runeland are very big and bright. In the world of magicians, many stars will spontaneously form a certain pattern and keep flashing, giving some gifted magicians some spiritual enlightenment. Legend has it that it is a magic constellation in the heavens, the origin of various top magics, and the location of the heavenly magic that Vega has been looking for. Countless days and nights, I was alone looking at the stars, but this time there was one more person, a person who was not afraid of being hurt by me, and wanted to be friends with me. Looking at the starry sky, Vega tried to recall the appearance of the human, wanting to see his friend's face clearly, but suddenly saw his most horrifying nightmare. The undead tyrant named Mordekaiser walked towards him, dragging his soul-wailing hammer, and laughed in a low, sinister way, wanting to smash the human behind him to death with one hammer. Pain is eternal, and death is not your final destination. Yu Yun raised his sword and smashed it down fiercely. In an instant, Vega, who was afraid of losing his friend, grasped his staff, and activated the teleportation magic. My name is. Dots of purple stars appeared in front of him, and there was nothing in front of the man. Standing up, Lester looked up at the night sky expressionlessly. With the help of Elena, the wound on his right arm had stopped bleeding spontaneously and began to heal slowly. Vega had left, so he didn't need to continue pretending to be injured. It was not until this moment that he realized how deep Mordekaiser's influence on the dominated was. The star spirits who enslaved the Dragon King regarded the human world as nothing. The ruler of the underworld was controlling the souls of the dead and preparing to sweep the world. The lost Darkborn were ready to move in the seal, and the void that destroyed everything was waiting for an opportunity to move in the dark side of Runeland. The catastrophe of world destruction is hidden, and countries are still fighting each other. The world in front of us is beautiful and fragile, but all living things can get the capital of a peaceful life in a strange balance. Why? Why can such a world continue for 1,000 years without being destroyed? The reason why it can continue is because of the messy script written by a certain game company. A company that can't even master the balance of the game, dare not even open a global dialogue, and uses capricious and stupid rules to guide players on how to play old-fashioned games. Can it really decide the fate of a vast world? The fact is, it can. If I don't intervene, such a ridiculous world will continue for 1,000 years. Lester suddenly felt very funny, and he also started to laugh out loud, very unscrupulously, until he laughed tears. Dimist, who was guarding nearby, quietly approached the man who was a little abnormal. Perhaps in his opinion, the master's behavior was normal. Master, do you need me to continue looking for Vega's trace? Wiping his tears, Lester shook his head and turned away. The seeds of trust have been planted. What we need is a little more patience. He can't run away. Country M. Russia S is a broken house. There is nothing inside. Just hammer it hard, and it will be done. I support you. Ukraine L. Boss. Boss. I hammered it. But a group of bald men came out to fight me. Boss, help. North Y. We strongly condemn Russia's military actions that undermine peace. Come on, Ukraine L. Don't be afraid. Germany G. We support you with 7,000 helmets. Ukraine L. Germany G. Ukraine L. I *% North. United G. You have to maintain world peace. I request to apply for arbitration for Russia S who has caused disputes by undermining peace. Russia S, the rotating chairman of the United G. Don't worry, little brother, we will send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine L to prevent Russia S's invasion. Ukraine L with his pants taken off. If the boss doesn't take care of things, can he still be called the boss? What do you think of calling him a cockroach? Isn't this forcing them to learn to sing the national anthem? Where is Baideng? Where is my father Baideng? The reporter from the United States who was just kicked out of Baigong. Baideng is having diarrhea. The crowd. Congratulations to Mr. Poojay for breaking Mr. Adeof's record with a speedrun of 1 hour and 22 minutes. Long live the Tour de France. Booby, boo, and continue to boo. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.